Okay. Mr. President and members of the board, today is board workshop April 7th, 2026. We have no public comments, and today we're going to do budget workshop and team of 8 training. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Kenneth Oddix to work us through a very concise budget presentation. He said, how much time do I have to work through millions of dollars?
15 minutes. I'll get like talk here and talk fast. All right, so here's the one pager with the updated information since the last time we talked. For perspective, this first column where it used to be our budget for this year, I've updated that with our forecast number because we've lived 8 months of actuals, and so that's embedded here. Bottom line, at the bottom line, it's the same total revenue that we've been talking about before, so that number hasn't moved. It's changed some in individual buckets, but in total it's the same. In terms of the assumption for the outer years, we're assuming adding 150 ADA next year, the following 2 years, and then 300 in the out year, that we would do a Vader, a 7-cent Vader, so that's in there as well. And so starting with the first column, as we've previously agreed to, we're not planning to open any schools next year. You see the Vader impact on line 2 of $6.4 million. On the line 7 with the state revenue, the reason for that $1.5 million increase is every 100 kids is $1 million, so 150 kids is $1.5 million. That's what that number is about. In terms of the other 2 years, sticking to that revenue line, why the revenue goes up $5 million in the next year, it's another 150 kids, so that's $1.5 million. Then the other big variable here is that's a legislative session, so we don't know what the legislature is going to do. But I looked in the rearview mirror and looked at what has state funding done on a per kid basis over the last 7 years. The average of that is 1.7%. So that's what I'm assuming here is 1.7% in that year, and in the following year, for us, that's $2.5 million. So you got $1.5 million from the kids, you got $2.5 million from the assumed increase in the state funding, and then in opening those schools, you get NEFA money, which is assumed at $1 million. So that's what's going on here. The next year is the same kind of drill. It's only more kids, so you get $3 million, then you get the additional 2.5 from the state, and then you're adding NEFA money for $500,000 for the assumption of opening high school 4 as a 9th grade center. So that's really what's going on with this page. One final thing, and we'll get into that when I briefly talk about because I'm going to give you the general fund budget, which is most of the show, then food service and debt service. On the food service side, you see here the assumption that we're going to have food service cover $300,000 worth of shared operating costs, increase that to $500,000 in next year's budget, and then forecasting out another $700,000 in the outer years. Perspective on that, we could transfer $1.1 million worth of shared cost, but we'll have to raise meal prices in order to do that. And so the assumption in next year is that we will raise meal prices, and we'll be bringing that to the board at next month's board meeting.
The trustees, if you just go back real quick, Kenneth, I just want to kind of just articulate some of our thinking in these conversations. We totally understand this board has not really in-depth discussed a VATRE, nor have you called for it, but as a placeholder, we wanted those funds there for your consideration. And then the 150 kids this year, 150 kids the following year, and 300. When we looked at the demographer's projections between minimum and mid, we just kind of split the difference and looked at the middle, because right now we don't know what open enrollment is going to do for us. If we really looked at everyone who's expressed interest in open enrollment, it'd actually be more than 150. But we want to play it real conservative. That way, if it doesn't pan out the way we thought, we built a budget on the most conservative numbers.
That's helpful. Why the 300?
So in the third year, the number is between 200 and 400 students additional, right? The minimum is 200. The mid, not the max, is 400. So we split the difference at 300 in year 3.
One thing to note on that, because I looked in the rearview mirror in terms of what state funding has done. I also looked in the rearview mirror in terms of what the growth of Georgetown has done over the last 5 years. So it's like since COVID, these past 5 years, we've averaged 356 kids, and we've been in the 300s to 400s. It's only been this year that it really, the breaks went on, we were at 86 kids. So our overall average is 350 kids. Now, a lot has changed, we've got vouchers coming next year, all that kind of thing, but on the other hand, we're doing open enrollment, so we're gonna have to live the experience, but that's the logic. Okay. All right, so then this is the expense, and most of our expense is payroll, and so this is our forecast for this year. If you look back at revenue, you see we've got 169 million of revenue. Well, on expenses for this year, we've got 160 million of costs. So on an ongoing operational basis, we should balance ourselves this year. What you see on line 38 is that we are also planning to add to fund balance with what we know right now, like 5.7 million. Where that's coming from is we're going to get some one-time funding. We've got a property value audit, 12.4 million, sold land, we're going to have E-rate money, and then on the outflow side is medical. Last year, medical, because we self-fund, we lost 3.4 million in medical last year. This year, we're forecasted to lose 4.5 million. So between that two, that's $8 million, okay? So to get that fund balance to zero, we need $8 million transferred from the general fund at the end of this year to get to zero. I want to do another million to where we actually put $1 million into that fund balance. So even in doing that, we'll be able to transfer, or add to fund balance 5.7 million. We started this year with just under 37 million. We should end at 42. Okay, so good year, but that's courtesy of that property value law. I mean, that's really what's saved us. So that's the year we're living. In terms of for next year, the biggest change that's in here is proposed pay raises. We've had initial conversations with CASB. We'll be coming back to the board next month with a recommended pay raise and being asked for approval at the May board meeting. This is kind of based on what we, kind of like initial estimates type of thing. This would fund a 2% raise, and with a broad brush be able to say, hey, every person in the organization, that would get you to a market rate of pay. The price tag of that is 4.2 million. Then adding $2 million for medical, to where we don't have to take anything from the employee's paycheck. This would allow us to cover, because we're underfunding our medical right now, and the estimate for cost going up next year is double digit. It's like 13% is the initial estimate. So to cover that and be able to balance out, there's $2 million in the budget for that. That's really the biggest cost change. We've got, we're triple tiering bus routes, so that when I talked to Josh this morning, he's confident that we'll be able to reduce 10 routes out of our busing next year by triple tiering. We've added $1 million in contingency. And so with that, we would still be able to balance. So if we get the Vader and we added and we made these changes to our cost structure, we're still balanced. Okay, that's the message here.
Kenneth, if I could just add some color commentary. So I want to draw your attention to the bottom part, which is assuming a VAT or TRE either failed or didn't happen. And you'll notice that the change in fund balance, it indicates a $5.6 million deficit, okay? So I want to just draw your attention to a few things on the expenses side. The pay increases, line 17, okay? A consideration we're going to have later here for you is that a thing we do something about? Do we delay it? Longer conversation. You'll see on line 18, medical insurance rate increases are just killing us right now. So a $2 million increase in just paying to cover insurance is what we have to budget there. And then you can see Kenneth, really wisely, has budgeted for contingency on line 25. That's whatever happens in a school year, having $1 million to add additional staff, take care of an immediate need that we didn't predict. So if you were to take out, in theory, pay raises, contingency, we can make an argument that we can land at a balanced budget. But the thing that won't balance a budget is a pay increase without a VATRE. There's no more revenue coming in. Is that fair, Kenneth? Anything
yeah, and to give here's kind of another perspective. So you can literally, like the intent of this layout is these numbers here, like line 40, is what happens to our fund balance if the Vader passes, or on an incremental basis, hey, next year with a Vader, we add 800,000, so we break even type of thing. If it didn't pass, we lose 5.6 million. Another way to kind of think about it is what happens in our worst case scenario. We give the raise, but the Vader doesn't pass. Here's perspective. We started this year with just call it 37 million. Okay, that's what we started this year. On a worst case scenario next year, if we add this to our cost structure, the Vader passes, we have as much money basically, we end at 36.7, we started this year at 36.8. So in our worst case kind of scenario, we're where we started this year with.
Right, but we baked in the ongoing operating cost of pay raises
Right.
without the one-time property value audits that got us to keep our value.
Correct.
So you're basically banking on a one-time payment when you say that.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's kind of like this allows you money to place that bet, on betting on the pay raise, because we would end here. Now the other piece to that is, this looks like, hey, if you wanted to be worried, it's like, well, man, every year if I do this is going to happen to me every year. You can do a Vader every year, just like Liberty Hill did it. They didn't get it the first year, they can do it the next year. These variables out here are, on these scenarios, we're layering in the cost of opening all 3 schools. Okay? No pay raise, open up all 3 schools, we'll balance if we do that. Like if all of this was prophetic and we actually did it, we could open all 3 schools, have a balanced budget. The downside, it's no raises in order to do that, okay? But the thing that I'm most concerned about for us is kind of, this to me is the important thing. This is what we're trying to achieve. What's the best allocation of resources for this coming year, doing everything that we know. And then this is information in terms of, hey, if we do that, what happens out here? So, hey, the bad news would be the Vader, we do this and the Vader doesn't pass. Okay, we go to here, we could do a Vader next year. But then everything is just like this year, everything was a variable. Do we open the schools, do we not? The same conversation and allocation of resources would happen next year in terms of given what the state did, given what growth did, all that kind of thing. That's a whole other conversation. You've got a lot of dials that you can, okay, what are we going to do? Which way are we going to twist the dial? The only thing that we'd be setting in stone is kind of these changes here.
Kenneth, on the $2,000 for medical, does the following year, does that just become part of the overall salaries and benefits cost?
Yeah, this 2 million with everything that comes here will continue on. So it's like when you sum these numbers, that's what you start with. So the salaries and benefits excluding this last line of TRS is the last year number. So here's the start of the year, what changes, and so this becomes this. And then you add everything but TRS, and then you're here. And the reason that I didn't change anything here is that another decision to be made next year is we're self-funded here. We have the option, if we want to, next year, we could go TRS active care, okay, which right now, if the government continues to fund it like they are, it's lower cost than what ours is, okay? And so the assumption for now is just no increase because that's a decision. We'll have to see what the actual numbers are at that point in time.
That's a whole other TED Talk,
Yeah.
which I'm sure it's gonna go.
I know this is very general math, and I don't want to oversimplify, but just from my own understanding, can I assume from this that the 1% raise is equal to $2.1 million? If we're trying to figure, like, if we want to get off of 2, because that 4.2 represents 2%, correct?
Yeah, but it's also a big piece there, and what makes the math not linear. And I'll cut to the chase and just give you the number, because we've run the numbers of just like if you did teachers just getting a step increase, okay? And then that basically is kind of like a 1% equivalent, and then you just across the board you did 1%, and then a couple. Hey, there's some people that need it's like a position change and sort of thing, but when you do all of that, that's a $1.4 million to do 1%.
Because that's what I thought. I had it at about $1 million per percent, but now I see that 4.2 with just 2%.
Right,
So I was
but
wondering
the big
where
piece
that
there is just, and I'm gonna use a broad brush. What we've got as an organization is we've got, kind of across the board, we've got people that are paid below market, okay? And so to get them to market, that's where it takes more than 2%, because if I'm underpaying you, thousands of dollars, I've gotta add thousands of dollars, and when you do that across, over 1,000 people, that's where but that's why it's not a linear, because of the needing to get people to market.
So that pay raise isn't just a straight percentage increase. It's getting them to market and then a 2% on top of that. Is that what we're saying?
There's something, I wanna also, just clarify is, that $4.1 million, you're asking excellent questions, and part of the reason for your questions is, we haven't had a conversation about compensation, because I asked Amanda to wait till May, because I felt like so much of this was in flux.
Okay.
So, in May when we come together, the market adjustment information, the percentages of what the board could consider will all be in front of you, and you'll get to see like real time in
Okay.
detail. These are the positions we're talking about.
Okay.
This is how much we're talking about. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, I don't think we even brought some of those market adjustments to the board, because at the time, you brought them to me, and I was like, look, we can either do pay increases across the board, or we can do these market adjustments, but we can't do both. Right? And so now we're at a point where our market is getting so far away that if we don't at least have a conversation about it, we're not addressing something that's going to keep us from recruiting and retaining talent in the organization.
We've not done market adjustments a few years over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's created an issue at this point.
Okay, thank you. Because I was trying to do a little math on it. If that holds up, then what will it take to get us to a 3% raise or what have you? But I understand there's more depth to it.
So
So next
today, you want us to use this number as a way just to think about upcoming decisions?
That's right. It's just a nice round number placeholder that can be moved up or down
Okay,
based upon feedback from the board.
okay.
Mhm.
And then, since we're talking, before you move on, one fear that I had is if we give increases, we propose a Vader, it fails, we're in a deficit, and I know that you said, well, then you could do a Vader next year, and even if that Vader passes, now we're using it to get out of debt, and it doesn't account for increases next year,
That's correct.
which I don't love.
Yeah, I'd say perspective on that, if we did this and the Vader didn't pass, we would start next year with this, okay, which is what we started this year with. So we're at the same level in terms of just amount of money. We've got the same 36, 37 million under that scenario as what we started this year with.
Kenneth, can we move on to the next couple slides and wrap this portion up?
All right, this slide you've seen before. It's simply how does, us, or Georgetown and Round Rock are the only ones that haven't had any copper pennies. If we did the 7 cents, that gets us $6.5 million more that's embedded in the slide that we've been talking about, which is what Liberty Hill got when they passed their Vader, and like Pflugerville has 9 cents, so their number's bigger, but that just kind of gives you perspective against around the surrounding districts. This, and I've shared this with y'all before, but just as a reminder, for the average homeowner, and this is based on 2025 home values, don't have the 26 median home values yet, but for the average taxpayer, 7 cents would increase that $18 a month. Okay? Now that's subject to not knowing yet what we're going to do with the INS rate, our property values, and I'll get into that in a second. Let me talk this slide first. This gives you perspective. We've talked about our immediate competition and how they are. This gives you a statewide look. And Mo Casey put this together, and this shows you of the 1,000 districts, how many of them didn't do a Vader. So this first line, if you only go up to 5 golden pennies, you don't have to do a Vader in order to do that. Well, a third of the districts have done that. We're in this middle group where we've done a Vader to get to 8 golden pennies. There's just 43 like us in the state that have done that. 62% are in the copper penny category. So we're in the minority of where we are, 2/3 are here, and that just, hey, what's driven that is the fact that we've talked about before and shown mathematically, the state has just continually to defund public ed, and so the only source for a district to get additional money is to go to their local taxpayers and say, you're my only source, if I'm gonna get money, that's the only way I'm gonna be able to do it. And so that's a statewide perspective.
Is the headline on that slide us demonstrating that we have taken time to consider this decision? Like, we haven't done this in years past just to get this extra money, and at this point, like, we are going to be joining a large percentage of districts after careful is that the key idea of what we look at here?
Right. And that's just it's like you've got 1,000 data points,
Yeah.
and 1,000 districts have sat around this table and said,
Yeah.
what should we do? 60% of them, or 60% have reached the conclusion, that's what we've got to do.
And, when we think about all the budget reductions that we've done, we could do some things that are gonna affect the student experience, like, I was saying, like, what if we increase class size, the average class size in secondary from 25 to 28 per class, right? Well, that nets us about, just between middle school and high school, about $2 million, which will maybe let us do $1,000 pay increase for teachers, and then we're right back where we started, and we got huge classes, right? And so, we're running out of things to cut because we've made this organization as lean as it gets. And then the only low-hanging fruit now is attack class size. And that only gets us so much, because 28 is pretty big. But do we really want to get into conversations like it was in the news, like Hayes ISD, where they're going to class size of 30 just to get a balanced budget and pay people what they deserve?
I just want to point that made me think of what you were saying was, I think last year we surveyed the community to identify what was important to the community.
That's
I think
right.
we identified, like, transportation issues and class sizes were items that we were assessing what the community's overall preference was. Do you recall any of those points surrounding class size and what the general consensus of that survey result was?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, Ms. Mitchell. This community asked us to protect class size, and the board parameters and priorities, especially protecting elementary class size, was one of the parameters. And then the board also identified, based upon community feedback, that we should protect class size, especially in the core areas, to the greatest degree possible. So we've tried to walk that line as tightly as we can, but now at this point, there's nothing else to look at.
Thank you.
All right. On the food service, I referenced that we're planning to allocate $500,000 worth of shared operating costs. This shows you that with the proposed, and I'll bring you that at next month's meeting of raising meal prices, that would get us the $500,000 that we would be using to allocate. Okay. Finally, on the debt service side, met with the Williamson County Appraisal District, came out with estimated values for 2026 for next year's budget. Our values have increased 10% to $26.1 billion in terms of net taxable property. So in building the debt service budget, it's that amount of value times our tax rate type of thing. So we'll have to figure out our tax rate. One of the other things that's going to change for next year is the plan to sell our remaining authorization of the 2024 bond, roughly $90 million. So I'm going to be working with Dan Wegmiller, who's our financial advisor, is to basically say, look, give me runs on this, of if we amortize that $90 million over a 15-year or a 30-year, what would that take? Then given these values, what tax rate is necessary in order to service that debt that's paid on a semi-annual basis. And so that's that message. And then finally, as Dr. Padwell said, this is kind of like what's in front of the board. They've given you information. Ultimately, what we're going to need to know is, what does the board want to do in terms of, do you want to give whatever the pay raise is, you want to do that right out of the gate and embed that in the cost structure? That's option A. Option B is that we literally start the next school year and we say, we're not giving you a raise unless the Vader passes. If the Vader passes, we'll bring it back to the beginning. So that's a second option. The third is doing like the 1% raise that you referenced, doing that initially, and then if the Vader passes, doing the whole thing. That's currently the whole thing, whatever that ultimate whole thing is. So that's kind of the three things for you to think about, showing you the numbers kind of thing, and then 3 doors.
Yeah, so over the next month, this is what we're gonna have to keep wrestling with, and we'll just invite you to ask deeper questions about so that you feel well informed to have that discussion full board.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna transition to the next part of our presentation, but board, if you would like to grab a plate, because we're gonna hunker down.
If you wanna text creative ideas, just let us know what you got.
All right. It's great to be back with you all, with so many familiar faces, and great to meet new trustee. Congratulations. Welcome to the team of 8.
Thank you.
So this workshop is going to be to formalize your required team of 8 team building. But both Andrew and I deeply believe the best team building is actually engaging on meaningful topics to the districts and having real conversations. And so that's what we get to do tonight. Ben Mackey, I get the chance to go all around the state working with Andrew, helping boards and administrations come together on what are our priorities and how are we going to jointly focus on that. I also serve in a board role as well in Dallas ISD, so I get to do that, and I know your seats. I'll let Andrew introduce himself.
Andrew Kim is once again good to be with you here tonight as well. Ben, by the way, is very humble. He's also the Lone Star governance coach for Fort Worth ISD, as well as a couple of other districts that he and I'll be working on. And so I serve also the state as a state conservator for 5 other districts as well too. So between the 2 of us, and Doc of course sends his best regards, but between the 2 of us, we cover a good portion of the district right now in the state of Texas. And I think that we're not just bringing you some, regular mandated training, but perhaps some experiences and sort of, comparable understanding about what's happening elsewhere. And I think that's very important for you all to have. We're also working with other districts that are not overseen by the state, like Killeen ISD, Canatuya ISD, Victoria ISD, and others, who have asked to come in to help them also improve their situation going forward. So once again, we're very fortunate to be here with you guys. You have the foresight to think about this stuff, and I think you guys are in a great situation. So I think a good conversation tonight about some of the goals and then what to do next afterwards.
All right. So just a quick overview. The times, we will adjust these times to make sure that, because the budget part counts as part of this workshop as well, and it's actually a really critical framing element. One of the hopes is that based on you all engaging with the budget, you all have a lot of tough decisions to make as you think about all these pieces. It's really helpful for a board to make clear its priorities and what it wants to see, so that when superintendent and team are actually thinking about where do we need to make adjustments, that they have a framework by which they understand what the ultimate aims are, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So we're going to frame it up, do a little bit of roles and responsibility as we're required to do, and then actually spend most of our time discussing what are those aspirational vision elements, and then we'll come back together and close out with a little board self-evaluation. So with that, I got 2 opening questions, but first, I'm just going to kind of frame this up, and this is written for a school system, but these principles around organizational management exist in all kinds of organizations. Business, nonprofits, small, large, Fortune 500, doesn't matter. It's about alignment. You think about rowing a boat. Does it, if you've got all of you on a boat rowing, does it matter how fast you row?
It depends on why we're in the boat.
Okay? All right, say you want to go somewhere. It depends on why we're in a boat. Is rowing as hard as you can the only thing that will get you to move in a good direction fast?
No.
Why not?
Because you can jump out of the water, jump out of the boat and swim.
Well, if you're out of sync, you're just gonna go in.
If you're out of sync, the harder you paddle, you just will go in circles. You will go to the side. Harder to paddle will actually work against you in that case rather than just letting it go. And so the whole idea here about your organizations, there's a lot of different layers and levels and school systems and school districts and schools, and how you align what you talk about here and how Dr. Padaville interprets that and helps stream that throughout the organization is absolutely critical for you to meet your goals. And the way we think about this is over these 5 things, going from board ownership to more superintendent ownership on the right-hand side. The board owns the vision, mission, and values. You all are the ones in the community. Most of you all all of you all live here, and will probably be here long after your board service is done for the most part. You are elected to represent the vision and values of your community, and you are uniquely in the position to do so. And once you clarify those, then the next thing is, well, if we have this vision set out, it's great to talk about it in an aspirational sense, but then we've got to get a clear sense of what success looks like this year, next year, and the year after to know if we're on track or not. We call those goals, both student goals as you've written them, but also system goals, about some of those other things that got to get right. And then after that point, it kind of passes to the superintendent. You've hired this instructional leader who spends every day, probably more than 5 days a week, in these schools, understanding what's happening, etc. He and his entire team, so every time I talk about the superintendent, I'm referring to all of them, all the way down to the teachers, bus drivers, everyone on campuses. Then think about, okay, if that is the board's goals, if that's what they are saying is most important, if that's what winning looks like, how do I look at if we're on track or not? What are the measures I'm looking at week in and week out to understand if we're making progress towards that? And then, well, then what are the strategies I have to put in place to make sure we are moving in that direction? We call that strategic priorities, pillars, plan, any number of keywords in there. And then once we have that, it becomes less about setting it, but more about making sure there's alignment throughout the system. Throughout when a central staff member goes to a campus and that conversation is happening, that it actually aligns with what the board has talked about, and that all of these are working in concert and rolling together. So I'm going to ask you to talk to whoever is next to you right now. The first question is, why is it important that the board owns the vision, values, and the goals, and not the superintendent? Talk to your neighbor, and then we will come back together. Yeah. No, you need to participate. You can be quieter, but you part of this team.
That's kind of what I think that's our budget. If those things don't go well, that it's versus we just and if you don't know the community desires and what's important to the community, then you can make things.
All right, so let's go back together.
Good answer.
There's some good answers and cheers. Why is it important that the board and not the superintendent own the vision, the values, and the goals for the system?
Go for it, Anthony.
Because you can't let the prisoners run the jail. No, that's not the right answer? No. For the camera.
I think because as trustees, we represent the community, and these are the community's children, so it's important that we represent their goals and their vision.
Yeah.
And this should run according to their values. We're representatives. We're here to represent, not to dictate.
All right, there's one answer. Any other thoughts? Different conversations?
We had the same solid answer.
Yeah.
Like, we're the
Good
community,
answer.
we should own what the community wants.
Yeah, and I think the only addition is, we really set the tone for the district too.
Yeah. All those are dead on. And this comes down, honestly, to expertise. Board members their expertise is in knowing the community vision and values. You were in this community long before you served as a board member. You'll be in it afterwards. You talk to your neighbors every single day. And while Devin is a member of this community, that's not his job. He's got a whole lot of other jobs to focus on this school system. Your job is to understand that vision and value and to clarify it. Because you are the ones that have the ability to say, this is where, based on our community, this is the direction we've got to go. So then, next question. Why is it important that the administration owns the progress measures and the strategic plan and the cascading and not the board? I see a lot of boards adopt and write strategic plans, and I'm advocating that is not the role of the board. So why is it important that the administration owns the progress measures, strategic priorities, and system cascading? Go ahead and talk to your partners.
Not that it's even our role, but it was our role. Are we really intended for the system to have that level of impact? Like when you get down to that level, those things require multiple times a day interaction.
They're the implementation function, right?
And so there's already a limitation just off of kind of the frequencies of what we have to do.
All right, everyone's getting quiet, so let's hear some answers. Why is it important that the administration owns the progress measure, strategic plan, and the cascading, and not the board?
We talked about, it's almost the flip of us in that the administration is in the day-to-day. They know the people. They can best figure out and discern, you know, if they should go right or to the left. That's their role.
Mm-hmm. They're in it day to day. They know the context, the people, all of that. Other reasons.
Well, if they own it, then hopefully you would hope that they would buy into quality work and be more engaged with what they're doing
Yeah.
and to have better outcomes.
There's an ownership piece. If the coach owns the plays, they might buy it a little bit more than if the owner hands them a playbook and says, you're going to do this. Yep. Other thoughts?
The words that come to mind for me are implementation and operations.
Yep.
That's their piece. Like the implementation and operations, we're governance.
Yeah.
Their implementation and operations.
The board sets the vision, the board sets the goals and says, this is what we're holding you accountable to. Now, we're hiring you and your team to go and operationalize this, execute on it, tell us what needs to happen. And a lot of this comes clear in coaching as, you know, you don't hire a coach and then hand them the playbook and say, you're gonna run these plays and I'm gonna call it. Some owners might do that and it might not work out well for that team. But you hire a coach and each coach has different strengths, focuses, etc. That's why you hire them based on that and you let them do it. The one I want to dive into here is the strategic plan. I see a lot of boards adopt strategic plans. Why would I recommend that you do not adopt a strategic plan? Talk to your neighbor. And you can argue with me too. I love that too.
Take away their ability to adjust to the dynamic of the strategic plan, because now we have to do something, right? So that alleviates that ownership, as it's when that ownership so it makes accountability once but it also makes it harder for them to adjust it, because now they are, you guys for sure had to implement the plan you wanted, your plan didn't work. Like it creates this kind of duality of intent just and a lot of this stuff is, do you want them to have to wait 1 month to have a conversation with us to see what we feel like? When you set the overarching piece, the vision, mission, that should be what guides them in this daily decision. Not us making that strategic call. And if we don't trust them to make the decision.
All right, we got a lot more conversation around that one. What did y'all talk about? Why might I advocate, and Mr. Kim advocate, that boards do not adopt the strategic plan? What did y'all talk about?
I think it erodes accountability.
How so? Tell me more.
You're basically taking away their power and control of the strategic plan by saying, okay, it's our strategic plan at the board now. Even if they created it, we're pulling that away from them, and then any deviation or change, even if it's needed, a course correction, becomes challenging for these guys because now they're going against the board strategic plan, where they would have had us, as long as it aligns with our mission, values, as long as they have that alignment with their plan, there's no reason to pull that back up to the board level and reduce their ability to be dynamic. It's already tough enough in this environment to pivot and change when they need to.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's an argument that strategic plans are kind of outdated and archaic because of how fast education and the world is evolving.
Yep.
I mean, if we're just focusing on something short term and not visioning like big picture, we're spending a lot of time for something that's going to be completely changed and need to be changed more soon than a board vote.
Yeah. We had a discussion around anyone making a strategic plan would be an interesting conversation at
Yeah.
this point, because a lot of times there's a lot of time, energy, and effort poured into like constructing a really dense, perfect plan, and by the time you do it, it's like, and no one's remembering that.
Yeah.
Using it dated, maybe there's examples, but I think they're overrated.
Any other thoughts from over here?
I just want to be clear that we're not using strategic plan and strategic direction
That's
Yeah,
as synonyms.
definitely not.
Okay.
No.
That's good.
And so,
Because setting a strategic direction is 100% board.
100%, I would say that, I mean, essentially, that is a vision, values, and the goals, and maybe some other elements, but overall, that is absolutely what the board does, is set the strategic direction for this organization. This is specific to the plan, and I think a couple of things that I'll pull out here is, and I think it is in yours, James, to mention, as soon as the board chooses to adopt it, even if the superintendent put together the plan and said, this is what I recommended, even if you were to adopt it, the board has now assumed ownership over that. And if something needs to change, well, it can't change without the board doing that. And to that quote that, you know, planning means everything, but a plan means nothing, it's exactly this. Context changes so fast. And if you're setting outcome goals to say this is what success looks like, and it's not working, you must change the plan. And it's way more quick and nimble for the superintendent to adapt and adjust and move and call different plays with that. Now, I'm definitely arguing that you as a board you should see this whole through line. You should see the goals that you adapted. You should understand and have total visibility into the plan and what's happening and how that's working. Is this only about ownership and adoption? Any questions here? Because this is going to kind of guide our next conversation.
Do you ask that question because boards tend to do that, and you're making sure that we're not leaning in that direction?
Boards very frequently tend to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, no offense, but superintendents sometimes want their boards to do it.
Okay.
Why? Why might a superintendent want their board to do it?
Safe.
Yeah, but now it's on you. If it don't work, I'm doing what you told me to do. And I'm not saying that's all the reason. That's oftentimes from good places, but it creates this overlap and that causes confusion and ownership at that point. And so the reason I'm raising that question is not because I think you do that or aren't doing that or whatnot. It's because the next question that we will actually engage with, that we're going to have superintendents set the stage here in a moment, I'm going to invite Andrew to chime in, is actually going to get you into probably all of these buckets. We're going to really just have some meaningful conversation about what you really want to see for Georgetown ISD going forward. Some of those things might nicely fall in the vision and the goals. Some of them might be around that would be better considered strategic priorities. And we want to have that conversation together across the board to really ascertain what is on your mind and what is on the community's mind. But then knowing that eventually we'll have to take some time to pull those out and figure out where they sit. So that's why I phrased it that way. Is that responsive?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so let me make sure that I understand what
Yes,
you're saying. So the value of a strategic plan, or whether it's written by the administration is written by, I mean, I agree with that, because they're gonna know the ins and outs of the work.
Yeah.
Is it just the piece about adopting the plan that's troublesome? I'm not sure that I understand and I thought James made a really good point. I'm not sure that, sitting here as a board member, I'm gonna know very much that we didn't sit here and we didn't write this plan.
Yeah.
We are simply, we're being asked, we're given some input, but we are very clear about who wrote the plan generally, and who is gonna be administering the plan. So tell me again your concern about the adopting.
Yep. It is, to answer your question clear, it is solely based on the act of adopting. Because once the board adopts something, it becomes an official document that this now the board owns. Superintendent cannot change this. And so by that act, superintendent feels if this strategy isn't working, I gotta make an adjustment, but it's written in that strategic plan that the board adopted, well then it's gonna open up a whole question about, can I move it? Do I need to go ask the board to change it? And what if two board members really like that strategy, even though it's not working? It just creates all of these questions. The heart of your question I hear is about this ongoing conversation. Board members are gonna provide their input, understanding if it's aligned to the vision and goals. That should absolutely happen. You guys should have strong visibility in there. It's just about separating these out. Who is the owner of it? Because ultimately, the board should engage in this conversation, feel really clear about it. I see how this all connects. We're not gonna adopt it. We'll judge you on the outcome, superintendent. We will see if we're actually meeting those goals, but we empower you to make the changes you need to. So
It also doesn't mean we don't get to challenge those documents.
Of course not.
Yeah.
If they present a strategic
Yeah.
plan, if they present a campus plan, if anything is presented to us, like by all means, we should
Yeah.
question, challenge, understand how it aligns. It's literally, I think the adoption piece is you're kind of alleviating responsibility, and not even that you're trying to take that responsibility. I think it gets away from the leadership part of driving down to the lowest decision point, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe Dr. Patteville's strong enough to be like, oh, I know where the board's at, I can make that decision. Maybe Lindsay feels comfortable being, okay, I know most of the board, I know where they're at, make a decision
Yeah.
and go. But at some point where a principal could have made a decision, if it's a board document, there's no way that person's gonna feel empowered, even if these guys have kind of handed that.
Right.
And so you kind of start taking that away, and now too many small decisions become way too big to.
Okay.
I do appreciate what you said about
Mhm.
strategic
Yeah.
direction,
Yep.
or thinking.
Right.
That is something that y'all do need to own.
Mhm.
And I think that is an influencing factor, nudging to Dr. Paddlebell and his staff about, okay, how do we pivot here? How do we make this work? Earlier, I thought you had a great, short, probably the most minimal, compact budget presentation. That was a huge swing of $5 million. But, you know, if the Vader were to pass, you would do X, Y, Z. If it doesn't pass, you can't write that in. How you gonna strategic plan that out right now at this particular point? There's so many unknowns. And so I think having a more of a direction, looking at contingencies, and of course the administration job is to kind of think about those things, and it looks like they have already, right, in terms of your budget. And your budget is always gonna be the evidence of your strategic thinking.
Yeah, and that was our conversation last year was, does our budget actually reflect
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
saying are our
What we're
priorities?
saying, yes.
In fact, I can look at it from an outsider. I haven't seen you guys in a while to see where your priorities are in terms of where you're spending your money on, right? You can tell. Oh, okay. And if that budget is misaligned to what you're saying, then there's definitely
Right.
something, your strategic thinking is not getting to the staff. So I think that's where you see the evidence of that.
I think something Ms. Kinchlow talked about is how quickly things are changing.
Oh, yeah.
And especially I think in the last 18 to 24 months, it just seems like, to borrow James's word, we have to press as a team on this concept of let's pivot again. This plan we had in August is not the plan we have in November anymore, right? And it's really in response to outcomes data, right? And so coming back full circle to what you said, Ms. Malden, it's like, you know, if we start the school year well, the board has really clearly defined what are those student and system goals, and then the progress measures and strategic priorities we're attaching to those goals. So like the board can hold us accountable and ask for feedback on the goals, but our team's responsibility is to make sure those progress measures and priorities or strategic objectives are clearly tied to making sure those goals happen. And like as of today, I don't know that we can 100% with confidence say that alignment is taking place.
And it's a hard process to go through, and it's a lot of work to align those systems, especially all the way down. And so that's some of the work that we're going to continue today. We were here about a year ago already. Time flies, crazy. Y'all have your vision and mission that was already in place, very clearly defined. And then what you did the last time through this process is you really went through and identified what are our priorities, what are those goals? And you came up with 4 student goals and 2 system goals. So literacy, math, walkthroughs, and CCMR. And then your system goals around finance and teacher compensation. And I can even look to the budget presentation and hear elements of the budget presentation that are aligning with what you're trying to do here. So you can already start to see the alignment of these goals tied to what you're thinking about in your budget. And that's the value of this. And when the board can make these things clear, it gives the superintendent and team the ability to say, oh, we know the direction we're expected to go when we have to make hard trade-offs and how we frame them. So that's what we did last time, but now we're actually gonna kind of zoom out. This was necessary to get started, make sure we have those targets for the year, and some of them 3 or 4 years out, but every single year should have targets that we're aiming for. But we want to actually take a step back now and think big picture. In 5 years, which direction do we want to go? For the sake of time, because I really want to get into the conversation, I'm going to skip these questions. We'll come back around in a little bit about how this has impacted your practice, but I think we just saw that in terms of how you're talking about the budget process. So now I'm going to start with a little bit, and then I'll pass it off to Superintendent if you would like to add anything. Those are very specific goals that we are trying to target and starting to align systems around. But there are a lot of other wants, desires, that this community would love to see, that you all know that we want to see from Georgetown ISD when we look 5 years in the future. Some of them might align with goals. Some of them might be strategic pillars or inputs or whatnot. And we really want to have this conversation to put everything that we are hearing, seeing, and thinking on this table and come to some idea and see where these trends are coming amongst the 8 people at this table. So with that, let me ask Dr. Paddle if you want to add any framing before we kind of get into our protocol.
Yeah, so we discussed this earlier, and so if I'm leaving something out, just kind of prompt me. But in especially talking to our board president, I shared a little bit about, like, I felt like for the last 2.5 years, if someone were to ask what's our goal as a school district, it's been around the idea of no underperforming schools in Georgetown and as many kids performing reading and math on grade level as possible. Every kid performing reading and math on grade level. Well, those should be base expectations, right? And so as we think about like a school choice environment and the future of what our families want out of schools for Georgetown, like what are those aspirational things that we should be driving ourselves towards that gives our team something to chase? And I don't think this is hubris, but because of the work I see taking place by Ms. Petrozzini and the teaching and learning team and our campus leaders, I feel like we're catching momentum, right? Like that work of improving student outcomes and all of our schools having ratings that represent the learning happening, like we're getting there, right? Now, is it time to say like, oh my gosh, we're there, everything's been accomplished? No, we'll never be there. But the work is really happening, that now it's time to like level up in terms of like, what is that thing our campus leaders and our district leaders can start to chase to take us to the next level, so that we have something to talk about as a community in terms of this is what Georgetown ISD schools have to offer that sets us apart from anyone else.
You know, if I can add to this, Ben, if you don't mind going back to 2 slides of the goals that they have currently in place, like this is like mandated by the state that you have. This is like minimal stuff right here, right? And I think a year ago, you know, you had a new superintendent come in and so forth. So this was appropriate relative to what you need to do. So the question is, so what? Now, and if this were to be accomplished, what are you expecting as a result of that? And this is somewhere I think I've been thinking a little bit broadly about in a very competitive world today. I mean, in a parent choice environment, where parents are shopping for schools. What is that going to be a standout for the Georgetown Independent School District? They got to think about.
So are you talking like those 80% in 2028 going to like 90 and hundreds, or
No,
like what? I mean,
I think
where's that?
what Dr. Padua and I talk about is we've done, and I'm taking a lot of credit for a lot of people in this room, we've done a lot of work that was necessary work, right? That was corrective or responsive work. And the system as a whole is starting to feel like it's at a place where, yes, that's still happening and needs to continue, and the trajectory has us all hopeful, I would think. But we're finally at a place where the system is strong enough and the work is strong enough and the foundation is being built strong enough that we can talk about what do we really want this to look like? What's really success? How do we define that so that we don't have to have minutia conversations, because getting to 90% has to happen to get to what we want these guys to be and what we want for our kids. And it's just part of, like Dr. Paddle said, the expectation. And so we talk about branding, to Andrew's point, right? Like we talk about how do we brand this, how do we compete in school choice, and so those things have to be decided by us at this level so that these guys can kind of run that direction and align what they're doing. And then we also need to be cognizant, and I talked to Dr. Pavel a lot about not being disruptive and being respectful of what we've asked them to do the last 2 years. You can't come into this session and be like, oh, no, we wanna go backwards this way and make a hard turn. Those things may be appropriate to discuss, but the things we're trying to accomplish should be within the realm of what we've already set in place and keep that kind of growth and alignment to what these guys are doing. It's gonna expedite accomplishing it. And I think the other part of the conversation is the early part of this, what the board ownership is. I talked to these guys about frequency, like we don't get to touch the daily stuff enough. We don't get to, well, there's a frequency and a rhythm to all of this stuff. And when we set these big aspirational goals, you also have to be confident and vulnerable and brave enough to set them and step back, right? And then that's when you create your KPI or whatever we call it in school, right? Like you set that metric so that we know it's trending that way. And so that's what this, hopefully that's what this discussion kind of puts out there for these guys.
And you could, well, you will be able to take this in any direction you want to take this, and whatever is top of mind for you.
Yeah.
But so, for instance, you know, every budget is constraining, frankly. We have a budget, we can only have so much money. So when we have a choice, and as we think about this aspirational vision, we're gonna make sure student academics are continuing to go up. You are mandated to have 3 of these goals by the state, you're gonna continue to do that, you're gonna continue to monitor it. But what else is there? So if you were to say, and I'm not even saying this for Georgetown, you know your community, I don't. If you were to say, we value career readiness, and we wanna make sure every single kid leaves having access to a CTE field of study and this and that, that might be a choice. It would be like those type of things that you would be saying about what we want to be true. When we go out and talk to families about why to come to Georgetown ISD, our academics are excellent and these things are true.
Are you asking us to answer that?
I will in a second.
Oh.
Not.
Just to be clear.
Ready?
We have a protocol for you.
No, I'm not, but I'm like getting there. I don't
Not
Be
to-
very thoughtful and frame this.
Not to beat a dead horse, but
Yeah.
just as an example here, like, you know, just to prime the pump on things you may want to bring up. You know, Lindsay did a great job of hosting Georgetown ISD ambassadors. We hear from community members. It became very apparent to us that a lot of things parents are looking for out of elementary schools are enrichment and exploration opportunities. We don't invest in that. We've been in let's get out of DNF status world for 3 years. So if we want to, now that we have momentum there in terms of student outcomes, if we want to pivot into exploration and enrichment ideas, well, that's going to take some budget decisions, right? But those decisions right now are arbitrary without some direction from the board about like, this is what we want to see in our elementary schools. Is next level for our secondary schools increasing the number of students in dual credit AP classes, SAT, or PSAT merit scholars? Like, are those things we should strategically start to shift towards to represent high quality student tests in the classroom and rigorous instruction? Like, you know, what are those things you feel like, yeah, this is what our community wants to see in our schools? It can be messy right now, and then over time we can say like, okay, this is what we should turn into a goal.
You know, in my prior school district, went through the same process. And it took several meetings for the board to finally say, you know what, Andrew, we want to be a destination. Now later on, they kind of regret that because all the traffic down there is massive in New Braunfels.
Yeah.
But they were like, you know what, we want people to know who we are. We don't want just one of our high schools who has an athletic program to be known. They wanted to know for all the schools. And that became a sort of mantra. And as a result of that, one of the things we found out is that we needed an orchestra program at the elementary level. So we brought in a bottom-in program and we created and it took 5 years to get to a high school orchestra program. But we did that, right? And so that was part of the thing, but I'm gonna tell you this, you can't do that unless you have high-performing kids too.
Yeah, that's my initial.
Yeah, you can't.
You want to do both, because
Yeah.
that sounds fantastic, but
Right.
my immediate, not to be a downsayer, like a naysayer, but my immediate thing is like, that's not what it's immediately tested, and that's not how our grades are assessed.
That's right.
So when someone comes and they go, what's the school rating? You better not lead with orchestra.
That's right. But if you're a high academic performing school district, you also have those things too.
Yeah, right.
They
And
go
I'm
hand in
wondering
hand.
how the community can,
In fact, we found that kids who are in band perform higher than any other group,
I would imagine so.
right?
That makes sense.
So even sure, every
Reading is
kid
telling, no, I'm kidding.
was in program.
These things are so intertwined. I think that's why you trust the superintendent. You're still gonna have academic goals. That has to be true. If it's not, it's a whole different
But
conversation.
academic excellence can be part of this framework, right?
Yep.
It has to.
Right? And-
Hopefully it'll.
And it can be the driving component of this framework.
Yeah.
the intent is when you move from that reactive planning that we've been buried in since I've been on the board to this type of planning, is we get to create this vision and a positive enforcement versus every goal we have is almost a negative,
I call it reaching back versus reaching forward.
Exactly.
Always reaching
Yeah.
back.
And so we have to get brave enough to get past and to just, the academic excellence is an expectation, period. Like, the board has to like be like, hey, we don't care, like, it's like balanced budget. We finally said, hey, balanced budget's the expectation, and we quit accepting
That's the standard.
deficit, and then we had to do some work and create some parameters, and Ben helped us do that, and it was very well received by the leadership staff, and it worked. Same process we're now trying to do on the academic and vision side that we did essentially with the budget. But now we're trying to take it up one level. So it's gonna be uncomfortable because we all have that, hey, we're not where we wanna be yet, and I think everyone in this room probably has that. But we also wanna get to the point where we're not just looking at what's that next micro step to success around here.
And I just want to make it clear, we are not letting go of improving student outcomes, especially as it relates to how students perform on state assessments. Like, there are consequences of letting that go.
Yeah, you can, or else Ben and I will show up officially.
Well, and I think our kids we owe our kids more than just a
Absolutely.
literacy percentage, and our staff just a rank, you know?
One of the things I want to point out is, when I was looking at those goals, those weren't all of them. Because we had an aspirational goal last year.
Yeah.
And our aspirational goal was that all GIS schools will perform in the top 50% of their comparable schools across Texas in academic student growth by May of 2026, and will perform in the top 25% of their comparable schools across Texas in student academic growth by May of 2028. The district will outperform the state average on at least 50% of the accountability measures by May of 2026, and all accountability measures by May of 2028. So to me, this is, looking at this is an aspirational goal. That's not something that's gonna happen in 1 year. It's gonna take a lot of hard, continuing the focus, as you said, on the academics in order to meet this goal. And I think it's an important one, because to me, that the other one is also not, I always sometimes wonder when we look at those literacy goals, is it going to translate, in our reading particularly because of the way that the assessment is it going to translate in our students doing better or doing well on the state academic performance test, on the accountability measure? So I think we have to be really measurable and specific, that the district does.
This prior school district, when I got there in 2012, we only had 2 kids from National Merit finalists. So we were like, our reading score, it reflected our reading scores. Now, 10 years later, there's a whole bunch of kids getting recognized at a board meeting. So all those things are going to channel in. So you can't have a great band program unless you have high performing kids.
That's right.
And frankly, you can't have a great athletic program unless you have smart kids in athletics just as well. So I'm just telling you, I think these are all aligned together. I think this is going to be an opportunity for you to go ahead and actually give back some feedback to the district. And perhaps we set the stage going forward from a pejorative sense to what you said, James, about deficit thinking. Maybe not just a baseline thinking, minimal thinking, however you want to describe it, to now some thinking ahead. And I don't mean that this is going to come about in a year's time, but this is going to be now a guiding force to the staff in terms of how this can be translated into it, right? It's going to give color. It's going to give, in my opinion, some fun in terms of what you're thinking about as a Georgetown solution. Now, having said that, I'll tell you that in our work, if we just let you guys just popcorn out things, we'll be here till midnight, at least midnight. Because when I did this years ago without a facilitator, my board came out with like laundry list on a sheet of paper, like improved GT program. I mean, you name it. It came out laundry list. I just did not know how to facilitate this better. So we're going to do this in a way that helps you facilitate this conversation. And I think you've done this already with us, the nominal group technique. So we're going to ask you a little bit, a thinking question. I'm gonna pass out this card in a minute. I want you to think about if Georgetown IC were to achieve all we want by 2030, especially the goals that you've outlined, okay, even beyond that, what will be true for this system? It's the so what. If you did all of this stuff, balance the budget, improve academic performance, all A's and B's, campuses, now what? What does that yield? What does kids look like? I want you to think about that. Now, as you think about this, I want you to, in 6 words or less, describe for me what you're going to come out with. Now, you can have multiple. So you can have multiple, 6 words or less. As a result of this, our students will we have more national merit finalists. We'll have more kids in the tennis team. Whatever it might be that you're thinking about beyond, the aspirational goals as has been mentioned here, what will be the outcomes of those things? I want you to think about that. I'm going to give you some time to think about those things while I'm passing these out. You can write as many as you want, but 6 words or less.
On each one.
On each one.
What's each one in reference to?
Each thought you have.
Each thought.
Has to be
Oh,
6
words
words
or
or
less.
less.
Yeah, sorry.
You can have 600 thoughts here.
That's the
She's
legal
gonna need
one.
to stack. One sheet should do it for me.
On, and we want just 6 words per call.
Yeah.
One per card.
But if you want to have more than that, that's fine.
One per card, you said?
Yeah,
One per card? Okay.
Yeah, well, no, you can write as many as you
Yeah,
want.
you want as much as you want.
On
You can
the
use
note
the
card.
cards,
You
yeah.
don't have to do one per,
Okay,
you want,
thank you. 'Cause that was-
no, just do bullet points. We're gonna have you read them out.
Realize.
We want Devin to participate.
Oh, yeah, Devin needs.
You participate as a member of this team. Because you also have a perspective from everything you've heard.
Hey, these are nice cards too, almost some leftovers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm good, nice card.
Oh, it got real quiet back there.
6 words or less.
Getting down to 6 words is the challenge of the
Yeah, I
section.
know.
You
I
gotta
know.
start hyphenating
You
everything.
gotta think about this.
It's gonna look like my kids texting me.
We want you to boil down simple ideas or complex thinking into simple ideas.
Yes.
The words like "we" and "at."
Count, they count, they count,
That's why mine's gonna
They
say,
count.
mine might sound very cavemanish.
they count.
Take out the "the."
Hey, do this at your house. Let me tell you, your kids will love it. They're experts on this. You can dream a little right here.
She's so loud.
You're good.
It's the kettle chips we all
Yeah,
have.
it's Cape Cod. Supposed to be.
So good.
Yeah. Okay, I think everybody's about, and you can finish it out here and there. You can add more to it if you like.
Those are more than 6
So-
words, generally.
We do this thing called the nominal group
6 words
technique.
per thought.
It's NGT process. This is something we use everywhere. And I tell you what, I don't understand how it works all the time, but it has been great. It gives great way for you to give feedback without judgment, get everybody to understand and have some discussion. So we're gonna do this today. Ben's gonna help me right here, write your responses out. So everybody's gonna take a turn. We're gonna start over here. You're gonna tell us one thing that you wrote down. We're gonna go around the room, then we're gonna go the other way. And we're gonna try to go ahead and write as many as we can go ahead and identify, all right? And we're gonna get everybody's opinions and thoughts, okay? So why don't we start with you first, would that be okay?
I'm the new person, so.
Yeah, no,
you
here
can
we go.
be easy on me. Ensuring innovative, individualized learning opportunities for all students. Ensuring, emphasizing
Is that
ensuring.
6? Okay,
It's close enough.
Some of those big words gotta count as two.
Yeah, we
All right.
round down.
okay,
It's-
perfect. Okay, yes, sir.
Enrollment will grow.
Yeah.
All right, okay, 2 words,
Yes.
says a lot.
Yes. Efficiency. I put all students are active in extracurriculars.
All right,
Great choice.
Engaged adults with multiple growth pathways.
okay, all right. Engage adults with multiple growth pathways, okay, all right.
Have a confident problem-solving students or adults, building future, because I couldn't put in that little word.
All right, Ben, did you get that?
Confident problem-solving students or
Or
adults.
adults for future.
Yeah, building future, because I
Build
couldn't put the B
I
in
think it's
there.
like a hashtag.
Go to 8 words even.
We're assuming articles.
Yes, sir.
Premier public district in Central Texas.
Ooh,
No way.
you brought out the premier word. Okay, all right, I like it. I like that.
You could tell he has a smart
Integration
kid.
of AI, technology, future, whatever that looks like.
Wow, okay. That is actually a little scary, okay. Dr. Padua, what'd you come up with?
Just sidebar, that actually came up from ambassadors too, is a desire for, okay.
Those
Exemplary CTE and advanced academic programs.
Okay. Now we're gonna go around. We're gonna start over here.
This
It's like a
families,
snake draft.
Yeah.
families choose Georgetown because of opportunities.
Okay. What do you have?
Strong math, science, STEM program.
Okay. Excellent.
Academic excellence across every campus.
Okay.
I've got high academic achievement and then sense of belonging.
Sense of belonging. Ooh. Okay.
Like that too.
So there was an extra word in there too that I had.
No. That could be like 2 different
You're getting an A for answer and an F for execution.
We round
That could be
down.
2 different things. Almost like, you need a semicolon on that one.
Joyful, competitive students that love school.
Okay.
Heart emoji.
Okay.
Is that number 6, the word?
Graduates only return home by choice.
I got you.
I'm just saying, that's what every parent really wants.
More kids will come back.
Is that what you wrote?
Yeah, more kids will come back?
Yeah.
Here's what I got too. Creating the next generation of Georgetown.
There you go.
Okay, I love that. It's funny you say that because we used to give out these letters. You would be granted a automatic interview if you went to Texas State Teacher College, for example, and come back. So you got an automatic interview to come out of the school district. So that was one of the things that came out as a result of that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go one more round. How about this? And now we're getting to quite a bit. So we're gonna run our alphabet here in a few minutes. So if something is already on there that you already have, then just say pass. It's okay to say pass. But if you feel like right now we're one more turn that you feel like no, I need to get this one up there, I want you to say it. Okay? Is there anything up there that you have right now that it's not reflected here that you want it up there on the board?
Yeah, teachers thrive at the highest level.
Teachers strive at the highest level. Okay. Excellent.
Similar, higher paying jobs throughout the community.
Higher paying jobs. Okay. All right. Well, you guys talked about that tonight,
I have every teacher receives a prepared class, so that incoming class was taught so well the year before, the new teachers like that.
Okay, all
Very
right.
good.
Okay, that's, okay.
I think it's up here, but this is, I dedicate this to Anthony because he brings this up, this idea up often. I think it's a good one. The high-performing graduates that go places.
Yeah.
I had ran out of words, so go places like
Yeah, no.
competitive
no.
universities.
Oh, the places you will go.
Thanks.
Yeah. One of my board members wanted every year to have a representation at the service academies,
Yeah.
and we did. We have one at every service academy every year. We worked hard to make sure that occurs actually. So yeah.
And mine kind of goes alongside theirs with competitive pay for retaining, I had high-level teachers.
Okay.
I have one about teacher satisfaction, but I feel like that's kind of been covered.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll use, our public schools outperform private and charters.
Nice.
Okay. All right. Can be done.
Check that one off.
Yeah, can be done.
We already do it.
Can be done.
Innovative early childhood programs.
Right. All right, we're at the very end here. You got one more by chance? You're good? Okay. So we kind of need to minimize this list so we can see the whole list. Ben's gonna do some magic trick on this a little bit.
Can you see it as a too small?
It may be too small. Is there a way to somehow enlarge the visual?
Go to your 90.
This year.
I got a plan.
All right.
He said we're too.
Because here's what we're gonna do. He's gonna list out all these A through W, and they're all reflection of all your comments. The rule is, we need to see if there's any one of these two things that can be combined, because they are somewhat similar. But here's a rule to this. The person who said, for example, creating Next Generation Georgetown, can be the only one that says, yes, I'm willing to combine it with someone else's, okay? So we can make that decision. Only the person who said it and also who's gonna combine with can agree to say, yes, let's combine that, because we mean the same thing, all right? So, let's kind of talk about this a little bit.
Is this better?
Yes,
Can you
great
move
job.
Can you move that
Yeah.
90% view to like 100 on
Okay,
the
what?
toolbar? Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't
Oh,
All right.
That's
Oh, yeah.
have Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so,
the last one there is 12 left.
Go to the menu.
so for example, does anybody see just right off the top here, like all students, more kids come back? And then we also have one that says, I think graduates only return home by choice. I don't know if they mean the same thing or not, but I'm gonna let you guys debate whether or
I
not.
think those three in a row are the same.
Look, all I meant is, I hate hearing from parents and they're like, oh, my kid moved home, he didn't do well at X, Y, and Z school
Oh,
because he
there we
really
go.
wasn't
Okay.
prepared. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want kids coming back because they're not prepared to go into the world.
Okay.
So it can combine wherever we want, but I don't want to be an HEB and hear one more person tell me their 22-year-olds sitting at home playing video games while they're buying Yoo-Hoo and Fruit Loops for them.
Meanwhile, I'm over here showing up at T-ball and seeing everybody say, oh yeah, I went to Georgetown too. I grew up in Georgetown.
That's
I
great.
grew up
We
in
want them to be here, but
By
we want-
choice.
by choice,
Well,
not,
let's think about that. So there's definitely something a little bit
right, if
different.
there's enough that there's consistency in it.
I feel like the more kids will come back and create Next Generation are the same, but graduates only return home by choice feels more similar to
Yeah,
high performing graduates that go places.
Who said that?
Yeah, those.
That was me in dedication to Anthony.
So then,
Yeah.
would the job be okay in combining that?
That's
To
your,
some
so
degree?
that's your.
Being the same, within the same ballpark zone there, within that.
I
All
think
right.
only Rachel can authorize
What,
that.
do you prefer one of these languages over the other, or do you want to create a hybrid of those two?
she is always more polished than I
I was
am,
gonna
so.
say James is more. Passing to one another.
Well, why is it not just the community of choice? Like, we,
Well, my word choice meant, like,
I know.
kids aren't failing when they leave here,
Okay.
Yeah, and
Which is-
then I think the green ones will be worked out.
which hers is a
Yeah.
positive way to say it, which is,
So it
There's
sounds
also
like-
another one here about how to make jobs.
that's right, we're not talking deficits anymore.
Okay.
That's right.
Do these two essentially mean the same thing?
I think that
More
was
kids will
like
come
Cody
back
and
and then create the next.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
that's you two.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference on language or want to combine some language?
I like the fancy creating the next generation of Georgetown.
Yes.
That's.
I think that resonates with the community too.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Alright. There's also two right here, higher paying jobs throughout the community and competitive pay of retaining high quality teachers. I don't know exactly who said those two things, but is there an agreement by any chance of those who said that
Yes,
to combine the two?
yes.
Yeah,
I can see that. I like the second verbiage.
I like the competitive pay part.
Cause we can pay higher every year, but if it doesn't match, it's not competitive.
If you're way underpaid, we can pay you higher, now you're just moderately underpaid.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on whoever wrote higher paying jobs throughout the community? Was that in reference to employees of Georgetown ISD having higher paying jobs, or was that in reference to helping our students get higher paying jobs within Georgetown ISD?
Students,
Students.
yes.
Okay, then
Then that's two different things.
Yeah.
So higher paying jobs throughout the community mean kids come back and also be in a
Absolutely,
situation of higher paying jobs here,
Yes.
right?
I just ran out of words.
Regardless of whether they're going to college or not. So that is completely different than this one, which is a higher paying for teachers. Okay, alright. There's about public schools
I think
outperform private and charters in the premier public school district.
So those are both mine, so I agree to put them together. Thank you for calling me out, Anthony. I designed the instruction into two.
discuss the right stuff. That's how you get 12 words on the screen.
Test taking master, thank you.
Do you have preference on language, or does the board have, like, to clarify that, which one is, if they both mean the same thing? And again, you're not voting on any finalized language, this is just to get the heart of it. Is there one that captures the spirit better than the other, I guess, that you're trying to get?
What's your heart saying, Anthony?
Which one?
What do you think?
What's calling to your soul?
Well, standing on our own, I like the idea of being the premier public
There
district
we
in
go.
Central Texas.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think
I
that's a
agree
good
that.
choice.
Yeah.
Cause then we're chasing, the other one's
Right.
like, we're still chasing metrics
Right.
versus like envisioning the future.
There's a sense of like baked in inferiority in the other one.
Right.
Agree.
I think your CTE, like 8 and 10, are probably very similar. I don't know who said them.
Strong math and science STEM programs.
And CT and advanced academics.
What do you think?
What if you combine that just saying exemplary
Now,
programs?
who's the one that,
I did the strong math science.
Okay.
I did the other one.
what do you,
I can get Ben.
We're working with computers.
I would coach you all, these two seem like they're talking about
Right.
different things.
Yeah.
I would recommend keeping them separate now, because otherwise you're gonna start combining everything into one,
Yeah.
and then it's not gonna give you the differentiation you're looking
that's true.
Okay.
Okay. What about this academic excellence across every campus? And there was one that I thought was somewhat similar. Let's see, maybe it's not.
I don't think we.
No,
I
that
see
might be
the
good, that might be
Thomas
standing alone by itself. Let's see, anybody see anything else that you see
for.
that
There are
could,
these two I think you're talking about.
yeah, that's it. High academic and then, but the sense of belonging part is sort of different. So is there a way to combine at the same time, maybe parcel out a sense of belonging? I don't know.
Well, the sense of belonging part was being able to find something within the school district that makes you feel like you
Yeah.
belong to a community,
Absolutely.
whether that's band or athletics
Yeah.
or.
Is that more about involvement
Yeah.
or?
Yeah, it's more about involvement, like knowing where
And-
you,
And
Finding
that's,
your place.
that's
finding
a,
your place.
the sense of belonging is actually the intent of the extracurriculars comment.
Yeah,
That's right.
so you could probably split mine in two.
What about academic excellence and involvement across every campus? No?
I
I
mean,
like that.
what I'm hearing, and the reason I would, again, I think these are talking about two separate things.
Yeah, I think
There's-
That one is to.
Split Stacy's
Yeah,
into
put
the
me-
other
Put me
two,
in two.
and we can eliminate,
So if we take sense of belonging
and,
and
yeah,
work it into the purpose here that I heard from Jane saying,
yeah.
I care about extracurriculars because
It
it
gives
Yeah.
kids a
Just
sense,
like the
yeah,
belonging,
exactly.
that's right.
Everybody belongs to something.
Yeah,
And
and-
then high academic achievement now
Is
fits
in
in
that.
high academic excellence.
Which seems
Yeah.
also related to that every teacher receives a prepared
Let's
class.
go.
well, I feel like that is more of a staff, like, if our teachers, like, if you were 3rd grade and I was 4th grade and you were doing a good job,
Yeah.
like the kids I get, I should be,
Should be
well,
ready for
yeah.
fourth grade.
like the kids that came from outside of our district, I should be like, oh crap, we're getting a kid from
Yeah.
other ISD instead of one of ours. I called it other ISD.
So can you combine it with teachers throughout at the highest level?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some,
Some synergy.
yeah, for sure.
Synergy.
Let's see, is there any others that we think we can combine, if we made that combination?
I think that, I said that joyful competitive students who
Yeah.
love school may be similar to all active students and extracurriculars find a sense of belonging. Just something that kids are like enjoying
Yeah,
school.
agreed.
They're excited to go.
So I'm happy to drop joyful competitive students who love school and
And
keep
then be
the other
married
one.
to this Marie.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's just those.
And I think this is good right here.
All right,
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and put this back into our NGT format. And now I'm gonna pass you another piece of paper, or if you wanna use the one you got.
We gotta,
And I want you to write these numbers. These are secret magic numbers. They're not gonna be secret anymore. 15, you'll do, I want you to do it as well. 15, 12, 8, 5, and 2. All right? 15, 12, 8, 5, and 2. Now Ben's gonna magically have this thing appear here. And let's make sure if I can see it.
all right, can everyone see this?
I want you to put the corresponding alpha with these numbers. So you're gonna weight them. You're gonna give a 15 point to, I like
So we only pick 5 of these?
Yeah,
Yes.
only 5.
So the one we think is the most important gets
To you, yeah, out of this list. I
Okay.
want you to put the alpha letter that you want to correspond to the 15 point you want to give as a weight.
Gotcha. As soon
And
as Ben
12.
stops tinkering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then,
I got you.
then try to get the right color.
Uh,
All right, good.
And your cut and paste skills are on point, buddy.
He's good
It is
though.
so hard to do that
Overachieving.
live, let me tell you.
All right,
Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right.
He's filtering
We're only
multitasking.
picking five, right?
This
You only
is
get
an
5.
individual work. And when you're done with it, just raise your card and I'll come around and pick them up.
Remind us of the prompt that got us going on all this.
Good call.
if we achieve all we want to by 2030, what's true for Georgetown High School?
Yep.
What are these things, are the 5 top ones that you would want to be able to tell every community member you talk to about why they should be at Georgetown High School?
Still not sure I'm happy with this, but let's feel the pressure.
All right, okay, all the cards have been entered right here. So then, so I shuffled these so that, all the names are protected. So now, I'm gonna call these out, we're gonna play a little bingo to see what it comes out to. Ben, are you ready?
Ready?
All right. C15, H12, I8, Q5, F2, M15, H12, D8, K5, F2, M15, I12, R8, K5, C2, F15, I12, M8, A5, D2. Okay, F15, L12, R8, B5, Q2, M15, C12, R8, H5, F2, H15, E12, N8, C5, I2. The last one, F15, M12, K8, E5, R2. Okay, let's see how these all came about.
We should have had the staff do the play-at-home version.
Oh,
Oh, did you?
That's one, 4 of the 5.
We'll be collecting those answers later so we can fix our framework.
And you know, that's a great point, but you can do this with your chamber, you can do this with other folks, to get a good sense of what's
Great
going on.
process.
Right?
Great process.
Great process. I'll give you-
Otherwise, you will spend hours
Hours.
just talking in circles.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is great.
So now, Ben has sort of highlighted, look, as Dr. Hanna also said, you guys are in violent agreement about the top 2. Academic excellence across every campus and premier public school district in Central Texas. What do you guys comments on that?
I think one is the overall vision and standard of what we want for the entire district, but recognizing the importance of consistency at every campus.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason why we kind of grounded in those different elements of alignment is some of these fall in different places. Premier Public School District Central Texas sounds to me a lot like a vision statement that you're trying to make. Whereas academic excellence across every campus speaks to me about what types of goals you set. You set goals around all campuses and what they are. Some of the aspirational ones, I think, Jennifer, that you were thinking.
I also think that the underlying issue is also that you recognize threats out there, that you're in a competitive environment. Whether it's charters, private schools, Liberty Hill, whoever it might be, you know, you're thinking about that. So that's,
Well, and I don't even know that it's that threat as much as it's the community sentiment that we want to maintain control of our kids' education. We don't want to relinquish that to a third party that's based out of New York, Pennsylvania, California, Dallas,
Yeah.
anywhere that's not Georgetown, Texas.
yeah,
And so it's not just the competitive nature of it, it's protecting our kids and
Yeah.
our community's values
It's very
And that's what I think
Yeah,
a lot of us lean into.
yeah, excellent. And you have a next tranche of group that you also read quite a bit. I mean, if you look at these numbers, and they're not too distant off from these numbers right here, but these particular four, exemplary CTE and advanced academics, all students active in extracurriculars, finding a sense of belonging, families choose Georgetown because of opportunities, competitive pay, retaining high quality teachers. Maybe other than R, the other three are about extracurriculars and about kids being involved quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, as Ben will talk to you in a few minutes, the staff now has a responsibility and obligation to bring back what those things are that your kids are going to be involved with, right? Making that happen, and it has to be also measured to some degree. Because we're going to attack this, and we're going to need to go and measure it. We need to actually put some budget behind it, and so forth and so on. Any thoughts on these four?
I think for me, some of those in that middle four almost accomplishes some of the stuff that we left at the bottom,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you have high performing graduates that go places, if we get our kids,
yeah,
if we have that academic excellence at the top, where we have exemplary
Oh, yeah.
CT and academic
yeah,
achievement,
Yeah.
if we have a sense of belonging for our kids,
oh, yeah.
those kids are gonna move to
Yeah.
the next step of their lives
Absolutely.
successfully.
Yeah,
And so it was easy to kind of leave out some of these
yeah.
other ones.
Well, to that, enrollment growth.
Enrollment growth is gonna happen with
Yeah,
those.
right.
If you do these things right here,
Yeah, they're coming.
you're gonna go and exceed your enrollment growth projection.
Yeah.
Because parents they want their kids involved in something,
That's right.
and they're shopping around schools to see what they can be involved
And I think the toughest one, and I mean, I'll tell you personally, I left off was the pay part for teachers. And it's not that it's not a same priority as those, I feel like it's an expectation of the board at this point. It's one of our board goals currently.
in. Yeah.
Like, that is something we're actively seeking
Yeah.
ways to do every day.
Right.
We frame a lot of conversation around creating that space. And so I don't know that it elevates itself to, while it's very important, some of those things in that lower part that I didn't pick, like the teacher part,
Mhm.
still important, just not maybe aspirational in my mind, where
Yeah.
some of these other ones are
Yeah.
significantly.
If I may, a couple thoughts, and I've seen this work in a lot of places, I've never seen it as cleanly as how you all did it here.
Yeah.
Team of eight.
And I think what the purpose of this is to help have this conversation and differentiate things. Because too often boards see every item I have to vote on, the budget or this or that, as an individual item. Everything is, what's the enrollment? Is it going up or down? Okay, are we voting on class size waivers, yes or no? And judging those in a vacuum. And what you have done here is actually start to separate out everything from being an individual item that's important, because there's a lot of those. But actually created a framework to think about these two. And when you look at those first two, like we talked about, like that's your vision and goals in some way, shape, or form there. As you move into the orange ones, which 3 to 4 trustees agreed on all of this, in fact, all of these are at least 4 of you all said that's an important one. You know, some of those move more into system goals or strategies, but that's great to know because you need to see that alignment. And then as you go further on to the ones that 1 to 2 did, I think it goes to this point that you made, James, right here, is that if we do those other things up top, we will probably have a lot of these things here. If we have competitive pay for retaining high quality teachers, then we have higher paying jobs throughout the community because they're educating our kids and so on.
And remember, this guy's smart enough to know that even though the last one didn't get any points, he's gonna make sure that's because you said it. Let's go back to what we talked about earlier about strategic plans. You know, when boards say something, superintendents tend to listen to those things and try to figure out how to deliver that. So just because it's at the bottom doesn't mean it's not gonna be addressed. But it's been cascading to some degree. It's gonna be folded in many ways. It's very, very, yeah.
I was gonna say, we're 80% of the way there, so.
Because this is a great way for you to give feedback to what we think, what you're thinking, you know, collectively here. James, you want to say something?
No, you're.
Well, so here's what we want to do with this now. We want to talk about, first of all, we're going to give a copy of this to your superintendent, so they'll have it. So you can go and see this. If he wants to replicate this with his staff and however it is, I think that's a good idea as well, just to see. But we want to go ahead and now talk about, well, how does this translate to then what we talked about from the board perspective or a superintendent perspective? Going back to sort of the team of A situation, what's the next steps so what, you've done this. All right, we dreamed a little here. How do we make this operational? How do we make it reality? And what is that work that's gonna take place? So we're gonna talk about the next steps relative to that. So I'm gonna have Ben kind of talk about those things. But any last comments right here, by chance?
I think just this reflecting how, this is a team of 8 exercise. I think this reflects pretty clearly how everybody is pretty much aligned.
Yeah.
I think it's really powerful.
Really powerful.
I would also just love to open it up, and you don't have to if you don't, but Superintendent, I don't know if you're reflecting on what the board is kind of put together here, if there's anything that stood out that was surprising or confirming to the work that you've been taking here, if you had any reflections.
No, I feel like in different ways, like there's this work happening. The part about this that's really encouraging is, and I don't know how my teammates feel, but it kind of gives a sense of focus. Like, oh, okay, like let's chase that. Let's start to articulate what item M really means, what that looks like. What are the measurables, right? That item C, how do we measure sensible belonging? Like, do we? Anyway, I can riff on this all day, but this gives us something to chase as a team that helps us level up as a district.
And that's what a superintendent's thing. I mean, like right here, like when you talk about like going in places, in my previous school district, every senior had to tell us where they're going to go because we didn't know the data because they did FERPA issues. So we just forced all the kids to tell us where to go.
You don't get your diploma if you don't tell
Yeah,
us.
exactly. And at graduation, we recognized it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So it was one of those things that we're constantly thinking about how you make these things a reality. Because he's designed to actually deliver. Deliver what you want for this community represented by you. So these are very important to now give you extra direction. Because those goals that you've done for, 3rd grade, ELA, math, and CCMR, actually required by law. I mean, so you've done the legal thing. This is about now for Georgetown Independent School District. But those will match up.
Can I add one reflection?
Yeah.
I feel like all of, rows 2 through 6 seem like aspirational. And to James's point, like row 7, it
Yeah.
does seem like assumed, and it's interesting to me. And I think it shows a alignment that we know, like you have to have.
Yeah.
Like the key to all of this is having the best teachers in front of kids in every classroom. So I think that's interesting that we kind of picked one that's different than the others, but I think it shows an alignment that we can't lose sight of
That's
it.
a good point. Really good point.
And I think all of this is driven in your current realities also. There are some real issues we're grappling with to make sure our pay is competitive, et cetera. That was a focus of how we think about our budget. So it's top of mind. It's natural that it would show up in here.
Yeah.
The goal here is, though, you give the superintendent and their team, this is what we're shooting for, this is what we're iterating on, and that this process doesn't just end at a certain point, but you actually do this again 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, saying, all right, what's the next iteration? What do we make? What do we need to deepen? And what do we need to change?
And then to add to that, like the conversation on our budget and even to communicate to our community, like it is aspirational to continue to say we want to be competitive for high quality teachers to remain coming here.
And I think one last thought, and then I don't mean to take this up, but I think, you saw how many things we generated, just 8 people in this room. If you asked that same question to your community members, you would have thousands of different answers. And I still bet what came to the surface here in this collection of 8 individuals is roughly the same if you were to do it in your community. That's why you're elected in this space. And so it gives you tools when he's able to share, here's how our budget and this decision impacts academic excellence across every campus and how it's helping to expand these advanced academic programs. It's creating language for you to share with your neighbors and people in HEB about what's happening and why Georgetown is on this path.
And you know what? That's going to be the narrative when you go out for a Vader, which, by the way, is a very hard task. Very difficult task. When you go out there, you can't ask for voters to increase their taxes without a storyline. You got your storyline right here as to why. And I think your CFO mentioned that in terms of why we need that Vader for. And that's what you're going to have to sell out there quite a bit to win that Vader election. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think right here is a great start to, I think you just noticed something excellent feedback on that issue.
Anything else? All right.
So now, Ben's gonna talk about then, well, what's the next steps? So you've done this work right now, just like you did a year ago. So we're going to sort of codify this, operationalize this, and the team's gonna have to come back with some thoughts about how do we make this thing a reality. If not, you're gonna be wondering, well, what was that all about? And we don't want that to be the case.
So, and again, these are just recommended next steps, but this is ultimately your process and you will decide what you want to do with this. But what we usually see is there's a lot of, those words they have a lot of meanings to it. And there's still a lot of sorting that the administration will have to do to figure out, well, what do we really mean by sense of belonging? How are we thinking about it? And is it in line with what the board means with this? And so, the administration team will now take this information, go back, and think about what you currently have. You have vision and mission, you have student goals and system goals, you have these other strategies you've been implementing, and they will take a stab at how do those things that the board shared fit within the system, and what adjustments might we need to make? Do we need to adjust a goal or two? Do we need to add a system goal around something that came up in this? Which of these elements fit within a strategic plan that we want to sense make with the board and the community? And so they will take a stab at doing that. And then it'll come back to hopefully have this conversation with this community so you can start to see this cascade. What's our vision, the direction we're going, the aspirational thing? What are the goals that align most directly to this? Where do we see the progress measures and the strategic priorities? And do I see what we came up with in this conversation reflected accurately in that so we can all roll in the same direction? And then eventually it's an iteration process back and forth until you decide this is what we're doing. The board adopts its goals and vision and values and all that, and the superintendent puts forth that strategic plan, and actually you all move off and accomplish those. So that's what is coming up next in this process.
I'll tell you an anecdotal story about the sense of belonging. That came up as well too. So we racked our brains about how we measured this situation. So we finally just came up with a student survey at 7th grade and 8th grade. And we just asked the question, do you feel belongingness, and do you have a friend in the school district? Those two metrics as a survey tool was given to the board on an annual basis to see where we are. So as simple as that. So it doesn't have to be elaborate, but these things have to be measured to some degree. Obviously there's a lot of participation ones. How many kids are participating? And are all the kids are involved in at least one event? And one of the things we found out is the kids who are involved in multiple things were actually master students. So I remember telling middle school parents, get your kids really busy. Don't let them have any free time.
I don't want to go down a rabbit trail, but with our parents, we ask the question, they answer the question, my kid feels connected to at least one adult in school. Depending on the feelings of the board, we could ask a question of 6 through 12, like, are you involved in athletics, band, or an extracurricular organization? Just get that data real time. We probably do it through Edrophoria. And then we have information that counselors can use, like, hey, Kurt's not involved in anything.
That's right.
Can we call them in and talk about, like, what are opportunities to be involved here?
If you line up the students who are not involved to the academic performance data, you'll find that their actually attendance is low, and everything else as well too. And that's where you want to resource allocation to counselors, right? So then you become more efficient about usage of time and people that you have. So I think that's
there's a direct tie. Like I have my own personal story with my own son. Like as soon as he found like where he felt like he belonged in the high school, everything else kind of went with it. Like, okay, going to school didn't seem so detrimental anymore. Like, hey, you mean if I do what I'm supposed to in math, that means I can go hang out with Langley? Like, it was a ripple effect for him. As soon as he found where he belonged and like he was good at this, then everything else, he achieved a little bit higher in those as well. So.
And doing that algebra homework wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You do it to go to school.
Everything else seemed so terrible, and as soon as he found his niche, he was like, okay, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So if every kid could find their niche, everything else I believe kind of follows along with it.
If you ask kids every day, I'll get up in the morning because I love calculus. That'll probably be a small percentage.
That's my other one. See,
I got one.
That's the only reason mine goes.
I got one. Mine was so pumped up about the STAR test. I didn't have to get him out of bed. He was like, it's STAR test day. Yes.
Really? Okay,
But there's, there's one.
All right, excellent.
All right. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I think right now, I can already see your staff over there whispering and talking, and already coming up with ideas and so forth, so you guys are probably well ahead of this curve on this one.
Any closing questions on this activity before we transition to our last element of the team building? All right, thank y'all for that. So now, there's a picture picture.
You're so new, you're not even in the
I know.
I
Very new team picture.
My picture's not on
I'm
there.
sorry, let's.
I mean, technically it's May before your real term starts.
One of the conversations that happened, so again, one of the other things that we did and you all did as a collective over this last year was reorient your entire board operating procedures and talked about how are we going to operate as a board to be most effective in helping enable the superintendent and their team accomplish these goals. And one practice of high-performing boards is to reflect on your own evaluation. You spend time evaluating the superintendent. It's valuable to also reflect on how we are enabling that or making it more difficult. And one thing that I truly believe is the superintendent cannot outperform their board. So if the board is dysfunctional, there's almost no world in which the superintendent can be successful no matter how good they are. And so with that, I want to pass out, and thanks to James, one of the things this board said is we want to do a self-evaluation, but we want to make it for Georgetown ISD and what makes sense here. And so I'll pass these down. You take one of each, and then I'm going to turn it over to James. I think you did a lot of the legwork to kind of just put together something for this board to think about, reflect on. The purpose of this is not to do this, but is to actually look at this and have a conversation around what works, what doesn't. I think it's one of the strongest indicators of a strong board if a board actually owns how it evaluates and thinks about its own performance as it relates to the superintendent. So with that, James, I'll let you kind of share any feedback and how this came together, and then I'll give you our prompts.
Yeah, so it really came from Stephanie, Stacy, Rich Ford, redoing our board operating procedures and lots of discussions with individual board members and Dr. Padaville as well. And then my deep-rooted belief that the limiting factor of any organization is always your leadership, right? So we're always going to be the cap as the board. Like Ben set up for me, Dr. Padaville can't outperform our dysfunction or lack of leadership. He can perform right up to it, and he can push portions of it, but he can't outperform it. And then the other component is I feel like we, collectively as a team of 8 and as a board, we get to push down a lot and set standards below ourselves, and we get to ask a lot of a lot of people. And so I think it's fair that we also turn that mirror around and look at ourselves at least once a year and say, okay, what are we doing or what are we not doing that could allow for this to succeed at a faster rate, right? And so through conversations with most of you, and I think a lot of us have talked about kind of this concept, and I shared these forms with you guys electronically at one point, or at least in one version. I think there's a strong desire to do the work we did today, which we're required to do, but not just because it's the requirement, but to actually elevate ourselves as a board for the good of everybody, and to make sure that we're all on the same page with what governance looks like and what our roles is, and how do we integrate those things that are vitally important to each individual into the conversation so that we're kind of getting the best of each one of us, and that's kind of forming what our mission, vision, values, and all of that is. And I think if we do not do this reflection piece, we can't do it. And I think there's a lot that's really healthy for a group that brings you together when you work through these types of drills. And I think it's healthy for us to, yes, we have to set goals for the district, but I think it's also equally healthy for us to set some goals for ourselves and look at what do we want this board to look like. And so there's two kind of hybrid documents. I've used these. Part of it I stole from a survey we did before with
Greg Gibson.
Yeah, Greg Gibson, and part of it I stole from some documents I've done with companies that I've been involved with. And so the first one, should I see the difference on them because they're not really, the one that just has the single blank lines on it is basically just a scale, and I broke it into sections. And we can talk through those, we can take things off those sections, but really I think the intent at this point is for you guys to look through this document, and if you say, hey, this stuff in section 1 doesn't apply to us, strike it out and let's have a conversation around that. Or if, hey, you're missing this kind of thing from this document, let's get those things added in and then create a document, I think is step one for us that we want to use as a self-evaluation tool, and that challenges us to the last page, come up with what are our actual improvement priorities for the board. Not the district, not Dr. Paddle as an individual. Dr. Paddle will obviously be a part of this as our team of 8, but what are those things that we're trying to get better at, whether that's creating these aspirational goals like we're talking about, whether that's more clearly defining what our expectation in terms of metrics and frequency that we want to see those things, right? Or how often do we have a conversation to update those? Do we really need Heather to give us walkthrough data at every board meeting still? That frequency maybe was really appropriate and important when we launched that program, but is that something we need to now back down to like a quarterly or a semi-annual or an annual frequency? Or is it something that becomes so ingrained in the system that now it's just an update on a weekly dashboard somewhere, right? And so those are the type of things that this is hopefully going to bring from our discussions. And then it has a very similar system, kind of stolen honestly from, adopted from the budget part at the very back of it. So if we came together, we could use a very similar system we used today to kind of rank these things and then prioritize without it being one person kind of dictating for the 7 of us. Because again, the end goal should be for us to have one voice to Devin, right? That one voice may have 10 different directions for him, but that one voice has to be the 7 of us agreeing that these are the things, and then we don't get to distract him. And I try to be very cognizant about, hey, that's not what we asked Devin to do in our conversations with him and with you guys. And so I think this just helps create that alignment so that he can continue that alignment down. The other document is more establishing kind of framework, and we could create SOPs from it. We could do a lot to really make our board operating procedures more robust. But essentially it's a similar outcome. You're trying to get your board goals for the district in this one, and then your improvement plans, and it's kind of consolidating those. And so we don't have to use both of them. We can use one, we can merge them. I just kind of got to a point where I was stuck.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want it to be my project or me dictating to the board. I wanted it to be the board wanting to be better for the district, and finding a tool that we can use to help us kind of work that.
What would you like us to do with this today?
I've got a protocol for you all
Yeah.
for this. So what I'd like to do is we're going to start with the first one he outlined. There's a second one. We're not going to dive too deep into that one today. We're going to start with the one titled self-evaluation, the first one he looked at. When you open the page, it's the one with the one line and not on 2 lines.
Yep.
So if you open to the first page, it gives a little bit of context and a scale.
Yeah, why not share with Rachel?
Okay, thank you.
And so you see the scale. I think it's 0 to 5 or 1 to 5?
1 to 5.
1 to 5. So 1 strongly disagree, 5 strongly agree. What I'm going to have you do is with your partner, we'll do 2, 2, and 3 on that side. I want you to actually go through, we're going to spend about 10 minutes, you working through with your partner, and if you were to, we're not going to actually collect scores or anything, but try to score it. See what's actually feeling right, or feel what's missing, or feel one that's hard. And then we'll come back together and reflect on how this felt and what stood out or what felt was missing. So we're going to take exactly 10 minutes. You and your partner can go through it together and kind of talk about how you would score it and why, and then reflect on how is this feeling, what's feeling choppy, or what's feeling really strong.
Every line or per topic?
Every line. Every line. Yep. You should be able to do it in 10 minutes. You don't have to agree on it. I would just go through and talk about it if you have separate answers.
Torturing ourselves for it.
Really distinguish between governance, oversight, and management of operation.
So I think we just start with one and kind of decide majority. And I don't think just kind of gut reaction. If you don't know because you're new, abstain. Something we've adopted, believe we should do. Yeah, we absolutely have. It's a whole like the frequency, that's a different conversation. Board actions are consistently aligned to district priorities and student outcomes.
Like you're comfortable, like,
individual
there's certain questions that
Another
we're
issue
sure
that
it goes.
tell them to do so.
So we use the, outside of that, we evaluate
And VP.
and so I don't know where it's on the governance calendar, once per year. Basically, Stephanie handled it for us, I'm assuming it'll go to you, pick one, hey, kind of throws things into a hat, do we have any of these? We'll go to task meetings, we'll bring it back, and okay, this is kind of what I'm hearing. And then you kind of do the same process, where like, yes, these are our priorities.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be, right, it won't go down to the district, right, it won't go to the teachers, like, it's not supposed to, we're supposed to advocate on behalf of them, so it's kind of up versus down.
Conversation about.
Between governance and management, I personally think we're getting better, I think we're still struggling.
But if,
I would say it's like a couple percent, right? Board's been the majority, and I think there's no student health.
This starts to get a little.
I don't think it's necessarily right, but on its priorities, I think we do, we now align our agenda.
It's supposed to.
And, yeah, I can, I wrote all these, like, and I stole that from those cases myself. And so I think it's more priorities and probably be more appropriate, and then I would say, yeah, it's really core, because we have that base, our whole governance program is now based around that. Resource allocation decisions are like state is board priorities. And we did our budget exercise last year.
Yeah.
We don't have a grand conversation around that, and I don't know that it's appropriate or not forced to have a grand.
is it a lot? Technically, the board governs it, but technically.
There was still an opportunity for it to like a three.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know that we have.
We might have.
Everybody is always somebody's not quite there, and everybody feels there, I get it, but I don't know that we've ever had perfect determination.
Yeah, well, and we've had that conversation We're there now.
She came on knowing so much. She came on knowing, that was all it. So this ripping over there, although there have been improvements, the new orientation. Elizabeth was I think it's
Unless they're asked to meet with us, we know we're providing information on those terms. Not ask a question, give direction. Questions are good.
I see how that way. No, absolutely. That was that's, you know, we talked about
I think it just, I think what I'm trying to say is, I see where we're working like, to the one voice thing, right? Like, you don't want like your managers having like, this manager said this, like, we just don't exist. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. You own it once we. Yeah.
I get it.
Agenda development, a lot of
Asking
different board
for
members.
We're doing it right now. How do you feel about that? For me, it was a good. I know, I can see.
Get it out.
Yeah, and it's a time thing to get them further. And that's why we moved to the board workshop 2 weeks before. Because I
Take about 2 more minutes.
something, it's been presented in the workshop. So you had it a couple days before the workshop, so you knew what was happening. Then you had 2 weeks to the board to get questions or call me and say, hey, I have a problem with this. And I'm like, I don't care. Unless there's a legal requirement for us to get the deadline, we'll pull it and get you answers. Like, just typically how we see it. That's why we don't argue out there. Because we reserve this space for. But yeah, so the development piece is a little bit different, but you could we could add a part somewhere, just make a note, or maybe we make that one of the things. But again, this is board, this isn't, that's district delivering to the board. Now, we could change what our expectation is. I think we just wrote in our operating procedures 3 days, 4 days. Yeah, it used to be 2, and then we moved it out.
I think the question, I think 5.
Consent agenda, yeah, it's
And
easy.
then I think it's 13 is the one.
So this is talking about not, in the time frame we were given to prepare, like, are you showing up prepared? Are you reading the weeklies? Like, I promise you, we went back to the email weeklies because I got so frustrated because I was in meetings and listening to ask questions that were in a weekly because they didn't open up their what's like a parent square and go in and drill it. And we were getting questions all the time, and then I called it that one day, and then I just told Michelle, I just started emailing it again. We had more people were reading the email summaries than were using parent square for this.
Even today, I just think that's not, you're here.
Well, because we're not using it anymore.
All right, let's bring it back together.
No, you're good.
All right. So I don't want to have a conversation. So thank you for engaging, going through that, scoring, checking, or a lot of good conversation. I don't actually want us to talk about what we scored or on those individuals. We're more looking about the process itself. So I'm curious, my question for you, as you did that with your partner, kind of talk through this, what felt right about it? Were they the right questions? And or what felt choppy? Like I was confused by what this meant, or I felt like something was missing. Did anyone have any reflections in that area around it?
I think the one point that I was like, is this truly board or is this operations or governance for one of the questions? And that was something we discussed kind of in detail.
Like
Can you tell me which-
section 1.5.
1.5?
Yeah, resource allocation decisions reflect stated board priorities. Just saying like, I think the superintendent should ideally come up with how he's gonna allocate resources to meet these goals versus me saying, these are the specific allocations I'm giving you and like hardwiring those.
So more like a question around, do we see the alignment of the resource allocation to the board priorities? Not, are we selecting the resource
Right.
allocation?
Or do we have a tool that shows us
Yeah.
that that's happening?
Yeah,
Versus, this sounds more like we're supposed to be doing it.
yeah. Great point. All right, thank you. Other things?
At 2:10, we maintain clarity regarding individual versus collective authority. I needed more explanation as far
Yeah.
as what does that
We made it our own
exactly,
definition.
yeah.
I think the essence, I took it from a business thing, and I think, and it had a lot to do with layered management, but I think the essence is trying to make sure we have a single voice to Devin, right? And so maybe
Is
I
another-
think we cover that somewhere else,
Mhm.
and so maybe we could remove something like that altogether. The idea is, we don't want one person, we don't want 7 of us to sit in a room and say, okay, here's our board priorities, and then Devin does his one-on-ones, and I'm in there telling them,
But don't
You know.
forget about my priority.
right. And now all of a sudden, what did we just hash out and work, and how strong is really the board operating if that person feels they have to do that? I mean, a couple things, if that's happening, we have to create more space for conversation to allow that to come up to the board level, right? And then we have to kind of dig into those things or try to integrate some things. So there's things we can fix if that's happening, and I don't know that, I mean, I'm not gonna put Devin on the spot here, I don't know that happens a lot with this group anymore. I think it used to happen quite a bit.
I'm not pandering to the group, but I would agree with James's comment. And so, and you know, I think it's natural based upon your different levels of experience and what you bring to the table to bring up things that like, hey, I'm curious about this, or I heard about this in the community, but it never I never feel like it becomes you have to make this the priority of your week now. Like, it's just like, oh, like that's something to consider, and we can chase it, or we can task a team member to do something with it, but it doesn't have to be like full stop, now focus on this.
And so I can probably reword that to some kind, or I think we actually cover it.
I
Yeah.
think there's another one that kind of goes over the same.
What else is in?
What else came up?
I had a question on section 1.4. The board spends the majority of meeting time focused on student outcomes.
So we have that question too, and I think what we've changed that to is board priorities to clean that up.
Yeah, because student outcomes, like in an auxiliary way.
Yeah, and that
Everything is student
that
outcomes,
honestly
right?
stole from the Mo Casey paperwork, and I think more appropriate to the work we do is probably that it's aligned to our board priorities.
Okay.
Several of those are student outcomes, but some of them are system outcomes, and I think our agenda and our governance calendar now does a better job aligning those, and I think we do a better job, like when you guys bring something up, I get it to Devin, and sometimes the answer's like, hey, we're gonna talk about that in July, can it wait? And most of the time, everyone's like, yeah, and we do a good job of noting that and bringing that to the right.
And I'll give just a little bit of my coaching. You think about it how you want to. The reason it's explicitly student outcomes is because very often we get into everything's connected to student outcomes. But then we spend a lot of time on those other things, and we don't ever come back to say, our kids actually read. We spend a lot of time selecting a tutoring vendor, or this extracurricular, or these class size waivers, but we never actually came
So
back.
maybe make it an and instead of one or the other.
And I think for how you all have set this up, you all identified student outcomes and system outcomes, or like how you are framing your priorities and your goals. Maybe it's around changing that language instead of student outcomes to be the Georgetown student and system goals, or whatever you all decide in that framework, to say like, we're actually spending time on the things that we said are our goals, and implicit in that is when Devin brings progress on the goals, he is also talking about how the strategic planning is working as it aligns to that. But I think that's really hard, as opposed to whatever happens to be the topic du jour that month.
I know this tool is supposed to be about us and we should use it that way. In like section 5, number 23, the board avoids micromanagement, there was like an instinct to say, well,
Of course not.
what is the staff experience from us on that front, even in terms of like our questions, coming from one who asks many questions, like are we staying in the right lane?
And I think you kind of answer the question, right? Like, where should your reach as a board member end?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The staff should never feel that,
yeah,
right?
that's a
Like,
good point.
Devin is the only person that should feel micromanaged from us. If it ever goes to the layer beyond Devin, we've already failed as a
Yeah.
board.
It feels hard to grade ourselves.
I'm not saying don't challenge them, don't ask questions, don't get information, don't sit in meetings, don't be engaged. But if you feel like you're directing or there's management happening at that level, we've already failed.
But I've seen boards do, I think it's a really good point. I think there's 2 elements to this. One is, let's reflect on our own behaviors and feel like, I can tell you, I'm a sitting trustee. There have been times where I have crossed that line. That is a failure implicit that we all grapple with. And I think it's helpful to reflect on when I've done that. But I think what I'm hearing is also this other point. And I have seen boards say, every 2 years, we're actually gonna hire an outside counsel to go and survey the senior leadership team and principals about how the board is
Like a
operating.
360 for those.
And then we see that data, and like that would be a really interesting thing. I've seen boards do it and get a lot of value out of it. So that's definitely an opportunity there.
But Ben, wouldn't it be appropriate for like, board member X to say, hey, I have some questions about this thing, and I want to spend some time, because they can ask me any questions.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then I can be the person to say, you know what, the person who actually executes this is Wes. How about I just connect you to Wes?
Yes.
And then that way, I'm directing the overreach at that point.
Well,
right?
No, that's not
overreach,
overreach.
actually.
Yeah.
Or stopping.
Yeah. What this speaks to is, I think the heart of this question is around, are we going outside of the procedures that we've established that work for us in a board? And then does it, like, you have that discretion, you or the entire administration can make that determination, but I think it's the question of the heart of this sounds like, is the board going around the procedures and causing more chaos and stress?
I think the fact that you deferred to that answers the question.
Yeah.
The fact that you're like, the staff should be the one to answer that.
Yeah.
I think if anything, and I know I'm very conscious of doing this, we err on the side of caution. So there's stuff where I'm like, a general question, like, oh, let's say I may want to ask Wes, but I'm like, oh, I don't want it to look weird if I'm asking Wes.
Yeah.
So I won't.
Yeah.
So I'll see him in HEB and like go the other way. I'll just find out in the week.
That was last Thursday.
Awesome. All right. Any other thoughts, reactions, reflections while doing this process? Did anything feel missing?
Not that I can think of offhand, like I need to.
No, I think it's really complete, it was well done.
Yeah.
And the bigger question is, if we go through this process and we reflect, do you guys think we'll get to an honest place where we have kind of, here are the things we choose to take on and work on as a board?
Yeah.
And what I could recommend, and so the way that, based on the documents here, and why I wanted to spend time on this one, because this is the first one that individuals, I would assume each person would reflect on this, send it to a centralized location, it would be compiled, and then the board would actually see the results and discuss the results together, hopefully coming up with 1, 2, or 3 things. We didn't spend a lot of time on the annual governance tracker, but I think the way that I might coach you to think about this, of course, think about it your own separate ways. A lot of these are yes or no. Did we complete our training requirements? Are we spending time at each of our monthly meetings talking about our system priorities? Are we reviewing data or like whatnot? This could be something that comes in addition. This is how board members are reflecting on our own individual behaviors. And then this is kind of the report card. This is what it says. We all looked at that together. It can be kept over the course of the year or whatnot. And you can look at both of those together and have that conversation. Any other thoughts here before I go to next steps and we move to close this out?
Are we supposed to do something with this, James, or what's our next,
well, I think we're
what's the
gonna talk-
direction to us?
I think we're gonna talk next steps next, and then,
Yeah.
we'll get to that.
I think next steps for this is you've already provided a lot of feedback on some of these areas. Seems like overall this is a good direction. I think the next steps are is I can connect with James, we can kind of work through some of these and bring back a draft for the board to consider more in depth. And I would recommend eventually you adopt this and say like, this is our framework. We do this annually and this is what it looks like. And what the process is, and we would actually put that in your board operating procedures.
Yeah.
So future boards do that. So I think that would be the next step. It would be on James and I, and that would eventually come back to the board.
And I think the purpose of this discussion was just to make sure I'm not rogue and creating a system for you guys with Ben that we bring back and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, we don't need any of this. And so I think that was kind of the intent to introduce it this way
Yeah.
and to keep building on the work from the committee that did our board operating procedures.
That's great.
All right, with that, I'll turn it to Andrew to close us out.
I'll tell you this, you know, it seemed like it was just yesterday we were here, but it's been a year, and y'all come a long way of getting to goals, identifying those things, to now talking about self-evaluation. A lot of boards don't do that. They're not at that level yet. Now, of course, Ben and I are working with districts that are in massive trouble, and they're nowhere near that kind of reflective thought. So I think that the fact that you guys are here and your mindset and your thinking, I think is really a credit to what you guys have done here quite a bit. So kudos to you guys. Ben and I, and of course Dr. Hernandez, Dr. Michael Hinojosa as well, you know, we try to do things very simply. You know, we don't want to give you this long survey, but we do want feedback. Because we want to know, for example, all the things that we've done here today with you guys tonight. This is a 3, 2, 1 little activity. I'm going to give you this card again. And I would like to pick this up because we want to know. You can put your name on it on this one if you like. You don't have to. But 3 things that I learned, or you learned, 2 things I like, and 1 thing I'm still wondering about. All right? So if you don't mind just kind of, you know, articulating what these things are for you. 3 things I learned, 3 things I'm going to take away and talk about, 2 things that I like about this. It could be that you like this discussion of self-evaluation. It could be that you like the NGT process, whatever it might be. 1 thing I'm still wondering about, that perhaps we can come back and talk later in about, or Ben can go ahead and give you a phone call and coach over, or maybe perhaps Dr. Padua can answer some of those questions for you. So things that you're still wondering about. I'll give you a few minutes. And, you know, if you don't have, you know, a couple things, that's okay. And you know what, I'm gonna actually change our protocol a little bit. I'm gonna have you submit this or give this to, as an exit ticket out to your superintendent, because I want him to read it as well.
Okay.
And then he will forward that to us, so that we'll have a copy of it as well, all right? Or Michelle probably will. I know that better than that, okay. But would anyone, see a couple of you guys still writing, so I'm gonna give you some time. Okay, 3 things I learned. Anybody want to go ahead and make one thing at least that you have on your list, that 3 things, on the 3 things I learned here tonight, by any chance?
I would say that our team is truly focused on the success of every school.
Great, excellent. Anybody else would like to add something to that by any chance?
I was actually a little bit surprised how aligned our aspirational goals. I knew we were
Yeah,
fairly tight around
Yeah.
the current work we were doing. I
yeah,
was a little bit surprised how dialed in that. I thought we would have
yeah.
kind of a little bit bigger spread there, so.
As Doc will say, you guys are in violent agreement with each other. Yeah. Anybody else on the 3 things I learned?
Strategic direction does not equal strategic plan.
Ooh, nice, very nice, very nice. I like that. I wrote down one, something that Ben said as well too, so I'll share that in a few minutes. Okay, 2 things I like.
I thought we had adequate time for dialogue and it felt rushed.
Great.
So thanks
I'm
for
glad,
that.
I'm glad to hear that, yeah. We try to, and Ben is so good about this, we try to make this team of 8, not just something you do. There's actually others who will just go through the, you know, just PowerPoint slide and just saying this is what the board work is, the board's on the top, superintendent's at the bottom, here's a gray area, all that good stuff. But this is actually your work,
Yeah.
so it makes it more meaningful.
Yeah.
Absolutely, great. What
Love
else?
the nominal growth process. It's just
Right?
so clear.
I know, it's such a simple
Such
spreadsheet,
a great tool,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the
More than
process
having
of brainstorming, like big
Yeah,
brainstorming, and
yeah.
narrowing down.
Just
Yeah.
love that, yeah.
Use that with any group that you got. I mean, it's a great way of doing it. We've done it with large groups, small groups. It's been very effective in that. We certainly would like to share that with you guys. NGT process. Okay, anything else about I like?
I mean, in general, I just like us having a format to actually have an open conversation without fear of violating some law somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? 2 things I like by any chance? Or even?
Nothing separate from what's been said. I like that. I think because we had so much time, we didn't have to be so formal about it. We got to be a little more human about it.
Yeah.
We got to laugh a little bit, where we
Yeah.
oftentimes don't, because we're down to business.
Yeah, yeah. And we started out with a pretty serious budget spreadsheet too.
Mr. Roddick's ain't funny.
I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna follow this. All right.
Is the $5 million deficit the punchline? 'Cause
Yeah. He's not
laughing.
funny, but he finds ways to make it entertaining.
When I saw that word,
First picture of the
I was
Cubs.
like, uh-oh. Okay, well, the last thing is that what's one thing I'm still wondering about? Anybody?
I think especially after the last, being new,
Yeah,
and
please.
after the last conversation is, am I performing? You know, am I meeting the needs of the board? Am I meeting the needs of our community, of our staff, so that we can continue this
That's
work
great.
and move forward?
That's really appreciative, I think, by everybody here. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
See me after for your answer.
I don't have to wait, you'll let me know.
I just texted you.
What else are you still wondering about?
How we balance aspirations and expectations
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
set
Great.
priorities.
Yeah.
That was the whole point tonight, right?
Yeah.
And the good thing is, now the superintendent and his team is gonna have to figure that out and bring back some ideas and thoughts. And you will talk about this for some time, right? It's not gonna be one more workshop, then it's gonna be solved. It's gonna take some time to get things going. Some of it will happen by happenstance and by naturally, and you'll adjust constantly. This is why I think what Ben said earlier, that strategic thinking or direction is so important, instead of codifying those things, right? So I think even the AI one that you mentioned, I do think that's gonna become prominent at some point. I mean, I think everybody's scared to death to address it, but I think we're gonna
I
have to
think it's sure it's
address it.
gonna look like
Yeah.
2030, what is
Yeah.
the technical,
The crazy thing is, our kids are probably into it already.
Yeah, no, that's real.
You know what I mean?
But I think
So-
it'll be forced to align with CTE and
Yeah,
academic achievement,
I mean,
academic achievement.
Yeah,
Because
somehow,
they're gonna find each other.
you can envision that.
I don't know, I had two, like, I was wondering, like, how do our aspirations align with, obviously, the staffs? These guys are closer and live in this, you know, I always wonder, are we off base or are we pretty close? So I'm always kind of curious, and I usually ask Dr. Padaville, and he's pretty honest with his feedback for me, so.
yep,
And then the other one I always wonder about is how do we systemize this and how do we make this process
Right.
outlive this board?
Yeah, same.
So that it becomes something we're doing, and I think that's part of our next conversation, probably Ben and I's, and
Yeah.
I think getting into the board operating procedures and getting that on our
Yeah.
governance calendar, so
Yeah.
it's regimented will be the
Yeah.
answer to that, but
I'll tell you from prior experience, it's gonna be pretty hard to, once again, think about like, how do we operationalize and measure this stuff? At the same time, it's gonna be the most fun and exciting thing that the board does, engage with. So just know that you're gonna have facing those two things coming forward, so,
And once you have it,
yeah,
and your community sees it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they hear that, they begin to expect that. They say,
Yeah.
this is what we can have, that's what I expect to have.
yeah,
You know, what's really exciting for me is this team did the same exercise while you were doing it,
Yeah.
and they came up with the same, top goals that you did.
Word
So
for
that-
word,
that-
too.
that alignment, no, in the nominal group. But that alignment of like, we're all singing off the same sheet of music is exciting for our district.
yeah. Do that with your principals, too, think about what they're gonna say, yeah. That's gonna be really exciting to kind of see down the road. Okay, good, so you got the 3, 2, 1 done, anybody else, one more last thing? I wanna make sure everybody's, okay, cause we're gonna get you out of here a little bit earlier. Then 8:30 was what we're gonna be portioned out to, but I think we're a little bit earlier than that. So if you don't mind.
Competency-based, not seat time.
That's right. If you don't mind, make sure that you give that to Dr. Padaville, so Michelle can type those up, and then, you know, he'll have it.
She's
She's
got
gonna
bigger.
do a copy of that.
Before we wrap up, this is the last time we're all gonna be together while Michelle's.
Oh, my
What?
Denied.
Oh, you want to do the board meeting? You want me to do this? Well, while we're all here, I just want to talk about just how amazing Michelle is at what she does. Just huge loss. I've learned my lesson of don't work with Michelle's because they just leave.
he said Michelle is Latin for leaving soon.
Every Michelle in Georgetown knows, me not apply.
I've said this to you before, but you know, Michelle, like you have made me better in so many ways. The ideas you bring to the table that I get to take credit for. But I just really appreciate the way you take care of this entire team of eight. You've made our work so much simpler.
Well, with that, we just appreciate it very much and the opportunity to be with you guys here. So thank you so much, and thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it very much. Congratulations. All right. Well, you guys are free. All right.
Okay.